Joey can catch up, or
Okay.
I'm not sure what's up first. Ooh, look at all the people. Okay, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 6:30 something, whatever it is. Are there any comments from the board on topics that are not on the agenda? Nothing? Nothing from anybody?
Yeah, I've got one.
Okay.
This is just something for the board members to consider at this point in time, and think about. We're gonna the Citizen Service Award comes up for each year for our town report for us to do. And I was thinking that with the year we've had, the service that we've received from all of our employees and anybody that has anything to do with the town, that we should just name them all in recognition, if that's something that's possible. Anyway, it's just an idea.
Okay.
This conference will now be recorded.
What does that, just a second, what does that mean, Olivia?
That's just like a backup recording for say anything goes wrong.
That's not from, not from SAPA or
Nope,
Brandon, or?
Zappa's
That's the
on.
meeting itself.
Okay, all right, I don't wanna
No problem.
throw a curve. Paul, go ahead.
I just wanted to let the board know, as a planning commission member, we have voted in, at the last planning commission, the future land use map. We want to actually use it as the current land use map, but it's got a whole process it has to go through. So the select board will end up seeing that. So I just wanted you guys to be aware, so that I think it's a big enough thing that everybody should, take some time to look at it and make sure, because we're open to comments and stuff, even though it is voted in, we can, it's gotta go through here and the other places, so just keep an eye out for that, and some of the zoning, the zoning district, definitions of lot sizes and where things are and what, and so on, so, just keep an eye out for that.
So help me out on that, because is that gonna go through a hearing process now? You've adopted, this has been a several year thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you go revisit the town plan, and then you have looked at the map, and you've
Yeah.
looked at the other change that you made was the zoning bylaws that we changed, so try to allow for some more small business.
And we've also worked with regional planning.
Yes.
This is not just all us, this is regional
No.
planning too, yeah.
So you voted, I was on your meeting, because
Yep,
both of you kind of, well, I felt a little bit challenged. So I participated in a couple of planning board meetings just to listen. And I found some things out that were very important for me.
Yep.
So the process now is where? You have to warn a hearing?
yeah, I'm pretty sure we have to have a hearing. I'm still working with Chris on that and the legalities. I think, Mike has also contacted Brandon and talked some. I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to say right at this point, but anything should probably go through a hearing first, so I'm pretty confident that that's gotta
Hey,
happen.
David,
Yeah, hold on.
nobody can hear anything.
Okay. Let's try to, we'll take a brief pause then to try to work that out.
Is this on?
That must have been Mike.
Okay, hold on one second, Brandon.
That doesn't look very on. Is it?
So that's, okay.
Are the microphones?
That controls all the mics, doesn't it?
I'm gonna put, is
Yeah,
it
these
the
are
echo
usually
canceling
green, aren't they?
speakerphone?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I
I think
think,
it's that has to.
I think we'll figure,
this is-
I think we're getting it now.
Can you? All right, bye.
Well, we'll test it. I'm gonna pause the meeting until we get this worked out.
David, we're back on.
Oh, is it working now?
We're all set.
Good. Okay, so we'll test. Brandon, are you on? Brandon, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, now we're all set. All right, I think maybe the center thing wasn't on, or now it's blue, so now
Yep,
whatever it
that's
is,
good.
go.
Yeah.
Okay. To catch everybody up that was online, I asked if there were any comments from the board, on articles that not on the agenda, and Mike started off by asking that we consider making all the employees or whoever's connected with the town to be given the Weathersfield Service Award. And it's just a recognition of people in the history of the town that generally make or get an award and as individuals have had their name on a plaque upstairs. So we're going to consider that. And then Paul updated us a little bit on the planning board where they have, they're in the process of, the planning board has adopted a plan that makes a few changes in the zoning map of the town in coordination with the revised town plan that they've been working on for a number of years. About a month or two ago, we here at this table adopted a list of, I think it was 5 or 6 changes to the zoning to try to allow for small businesses, and they've worked their way through that. So
back to what you were saying,
Yep.
there should be a hearing after. We still have some stuff at the planning commission before it gets here.
Yep.
I just want to let everybody know, because we've been working on it for a while, and it's an important thing for the town. And we're open to comments for anything, positive, negative, or just questions.
So you're gonna warn that, or you find out, usually the
Yeah.
hearing process takes 45 days
Yep.
or to warn and so forth.
Yep. Brandon and Chris, we're gonna help. I don't know if Brandon knows yet. I think Mike had talked to Brandon, and then I saw the email sent along to Chris Whidden to double check and make sure how this process works, because it is a little different than a bylaw, but in my mind, it should still be the same thing. People should be able to come in and talk about it, see what they want, what they don't want. So
Yep.
that would be the hearing. And
Yep.
yes, so it's not a done deal yet. We just put it forward, so now it can go to that.
Yep, good. Just as a point, a note that I have, and I would make this comment again when we get into the land use discussion under the budget. I have participated in a couple of recent meetings of the planning board, and this is not on the agenda, but I found it very, for those of us that, you guys are, this is the first time we've had 2 planning board members here at this table, so it's a little difficult when they bring forward something to us, like at the last time, where they've actually lived and breathed it for a couple of years before it gets to us, so they know it inside and out, and the 3 of us or anybody else in the public does not. What I found was, in this last meeting particularly, that the discussion around the table that I listened to, and I did not speak, all I did was listen, is pretty methodical, and they go through lots of detail about how might something affect that. I thought it was very good, because it got out of the us either adopting or rejecting a bylaw, and then after the fact, it wasn't thought out how it would affect. They went through a lot in a short period of time, and it was from all different things. I was pretty impressed with that. I stayed on for like an hour or something.
Thank you.
Is there any other board members that have any comments on items that are not on the agenda?
Just the same one that we've had the last 2 meetings, that we got positions open, that may not be as pressing after we get to the agenda item on town meeting, but for right now, we still need to be thinking about anybody that wants to run for any of the open positions. Need to get the consent form into Floanne, and as of right now, there's only a couple that have filed.
And for those who are interested, you don't need to run around and get names on petitions. You have to go visit the town clerk and to find out what you have to do. That's the simplest way I can put it. So if you're interested in running for something, find out what it takes. It's, John, I think you had it right, it's some consent form or something where you're interested in running, and then you sign it, go ask Floanne what else you have to do, and get it done. Are there no other comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public or anybody online on items that are not on the agenda? Okay. Brandon, do you have any, as the town manager, a comment, or maybe not, you'll take it up under your report in a minute, but comments that are not on the agenda?
Nope, I'm all set, Dave.
Okay, good, thanks. I'm done with mine, I guess, at this moment. Let's review the minutes. I need a motion to adopt the minutes of December 21st, 2020.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion been made and seconded to approve the minutes of December 21st, 2020. Any discussion? I saw one little thing where it said that, I think DeForest, you were, when I was talking about the chain of command, and it looked a little, I don't have it right up here, where it said it was a little confusing, maybe.
This item was requested by Mr. Fuller. His presentation was unclear given the nature of events to which he referred, but in essence, he stated that everything goes through the town manager.
Right. And I didn't mean it to be unclear, but what I found at the particular time was that I thought that the road to the answer did not navigate through the town office, meaning the town manager, and I thought it should. So I hope I wasn't as unclear as the minutes sound. I don't know where that was. Are there any other comments on the minutes of December 21st? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Before we get into the town manager report, I think there's a couple of things that we can do. Without objection, I would, let's move number 12, which is Martin Luther King Day. I think that's really easy to do. It's going to be on Tuesday, not on Monday. So can we just have a motion to make our next meeting on January 19th? And let's make it again at 6:30 because this seems to be working out. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Motion been made and seconded to move the January 18th meeting to January 19th, the Tuesday at 6:30. Do you know, Olivia or Brandon, the building is okay to use for that night, right? There's no other conflict?
Yes, there's no conflicts.
Okay, good, because we did that one time and there was. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't know, okay, thanks. Perhaps it might be, and I apologize for not having this in order, it might be important for us to recognize, although I'd like to keep talking about budgets, it might be important to talk about number 5 right now, just to see where we're all at, or what the feeling is, which is the town meeting. And the reason why I say that is it's January 4th, and by about January 25th, if we don't do it, then that would mean that our warnings would have to be in, and the original town meeting, which would be March 3rd, would have to be
The calendar.
enforced.
I don't,
So that's why, without objection, I'd like to take that discussion up right now too, because I think that's an easy one for us, because it did get some clarification on the elected officials and the voting. May, the first Monday in May, what is that?
actually, what's the first Saturday in May?
Oh,
The first.
First Saturday in May is the first.
Third?
Joey's got it.
no, sorry, did you say the first or the third?
Third? So Tuesday,
Everybody's saying the wrong number. It's
Number 1 is on a Saturday,
May 1st is a Saturday.
go the next, what's the second Saturday?
the 8th.
Probably 7 days after that.
Yes.
Third's the 15th, if you want to know.
Well, John and I have had a conversation about this, and I know he has with Brandon too. We're just trying to organize, I have good faith that we're gonna be able to submit a number in our funds that's gonna pass. That, you know, on a vote. And so the object is that our year end is June 30th, and you have to have some warnings and everything. So if it didn't pass, what kind of a time frame are you at to submit another budget, to get it under a warning before the year end? The legislature, to my knowledge, has given us some flexibility, and we got some clarification on elected officials, which means that those terms that expire in March are now going to remain until when we set the meeting. So my thought is that we should move, and although John just made a really good point right now when he said Saturday, and I didn't think about that, but the voters had voted to have the town meetings on Saturdays, and then the voting would be on the subsequent Tuesday of any year now. So, my thought process is that and I'm grateful to the school that would have allowed us inside the building on that hearing that we had to have for that zoning bylaw, but we rented a tent, and I think that's the way we should go again. There's some unknown. I think we should plan on having a tent, at least for the time being, until, so that we don't go inside the school building, but we're still able to use the outdoor field for town meeting in May. What is that Saturday then? Is it May 8th? Okay.
So the regular meeting would be on the Saturday, the 8th.
And voting
Voting
will
would
be
be the
held.
11th.
Is that what the
And
two?
the school board chair is on.
Nice. Anne Marie, you're on. You're on. Can you hear me?
She's not muted.
Can you unmute?
There she is.
Nice.
Yeah, sorry. I was having trouble unmuting. Yeah, I'm here. I was saying that, I was typing into the chat that, Windsor is keeping theirs on March 2nd, just in case that matters to anyone.
Okay. What do you
It
think?
kind of matters to the school in that, we're all part of the same SU, so I don't know what would happen with the school budget.
Well, but the school budgets won't run out until the same time, which is June 30th. So the money is going to hold until the new year comes in on July 1st. So I don't know the answer. So Windsor voted to stay?
Yes, they did.
How are they gonna do it, Anne Marie?
I believe they're just doing it online and mail-in voting.
So they're not gonna have an in-person at all?
That's what I was told. That's not official, but that's what I was told. Kind of
I don't know how they do it.
Yep. Anne Marie Redmond, Chair of the School Board. Yep. Mike?
Couple of things. We know from past experience that there's decisions that come out of the State House that affect our budgets, that we don't always have the answer to when we actually do it in March. So moving ahead, we may have answers, and I don't know if that's true or not.
No, that is true. But that happens every
Well,
year.
they may be moving some of their stuff too, I don't know. I don't know any of the answers to that.
Yeah.
The answer I got on the school numbers is that it's available for March meetings. The formula, which I'm not even gonna try to explain because I don't understand it myself.
When is, maybe I should check that, maybe then we won't have an answer for tonight, and I want to move on because it's like 10 up. So I want to,
Another question I wanted to ask though.
but I got one more question for Anne Marie. When is the next school board meeting? Can you hear me, Anne Marie?
Got unmuted. I think she's trying to do two things at once.
Because I think that we should offer the school board, I mean,
Yeah,
they're 50% of the budget
Yeah.
process, so
Their input.
she's back on. Anne Marie, when is the next school board meeting?
The 12th, I believe. That's a Tuesday.
Okay, so can you please put this on and ask what the opinion is, and, so we'll postpone a decision right for now, but we kind of want to rent a tent and offer people to come into the town meeting, and March is really shaky for that.
Yeah.
So that's why we were leaning towards having it in May, but so just to be clear, when you go, like, next week to your meeting, you can say to the people that those that are in elected office, even at the schools, will remain until the next town meeting, which either will be in March or May. So the elected portion of that is flexible. We've gotten the okay for that.
Okay. Another question that I had regarding the town meeting is the publication of the report that we get. Is that still going to be in regular time, or is that going to be postponed if the meeting gets postponed?
It would be postponed if the meeting was postponed, because,
Look at our budget schedule, we're not gonna make the deadline, period.
right. So the printing usually we have to have, but I don't think the school's any different. You have to meet warning periods of 45 days. So you guys will be done somewhere around by the 25th of January at the latest. And then that information goes to printing, probably Doolittle's, or gets forwarded somehow to form our town report, complete together with the school and the town. But if we adopt a May voting, then the answer would be no. The printing would not be done at the same time.
Okay, so that sort of affects, like the school, if they wanted to have a vote ahead of time, they wouldn't be able to because the people wouldn't know the budget, right?
Right. Yeah, and I'm trying to be, I want to be cooperative. I want to be together. So whatever decision we come up with, I'd like it to be together. I don't think we're a big enough town to have separate votes. It'll cause more confusion. So,
Alright, yeah, I guess the only problem is that David wasn't sure how it would fit with Windsor if they were doing it earlier and we were doing it later. That's the only problem he was worried about.
well, but the SU budget is done by the board members, right? So there's no vote on that. And so that's the tie to Windsor. Other than that, it's a separate town vote on Weathersfield, up or down.
Yeah.
Yep. Joey, did you have a question?
I was just gonna make sure I wasn't gonna delay any teacher contracts or anything like that by pushing back the meeting. I don't think it would, but just got people that
No,
kind of
it
rely on
wouldn't.
that too. Okay, good.
No. Mike?
Mine are just some logistical questions. If we were to move forward with doing it in March, and that has to do with doing it in the school, can we do entry and exit right into the gym and not come through the front? I don't know the building well enough to know. Are there entry and exit points into the gym? Can we shut it down can we shut the rest of the school down with the exception of the bathrooms that are in the hallway there? So, you know.
And keep with the traditional date?
Huh? Well, if that happens to come, like I said, these are just, you can figure that stuff out later, not now.
I know that there's a separate entrance because I've been in there before on different athletic events. So you don't have to come in the main entrance, but I guess there's a couple of things that would bother me on the whole thing, would be security and then the cleaning portion. So I don't know. The reason why we weren't really entertaining an online thing is because there could be as many as 50 people or more with little dots to try to figure out who wanted to speak or vote or something would be.
The Secretary of State said that you cannot use online as your primary source. In other words, you have to make sure that people that aren't online have the ability to attend.
To participate.
Yep.
Yep. And there's probably
You can do this also, but you still have to provide an in person.
given the geography of Weathersfield, there may be people who would have to be at a remote thing to get internet to come too, or to be able to. I don't know. I don't know. Let me work with, I'll try to get a hold of David Baker or you, Anne Marie, and then we'll have it on for the next agenda. And if we have to here at the town, move forward with a calendar of March, then the chances are very likely that we may be back here in another meeting before the 19th. So we're not gonna make a decision tonight, but
Can we do a straw poll? Just to, I would lean towards May.
of the board?
Yes.
Here? Yes.
That way she's got something to take to them.
Yes, only because of the weather.
Yeah.
And the ability for people to participate. That was the only, and I didn't want to go inside the school building, and obviously we can't come in here, it's way too much smaller. So the whole thing was, where are we going to meet with 100 people? I don't know.
I support either one, whichever way it goes. If the board wants to go to May, I'm fine. If it has to come up to.
Yeah, I think May would be logistically more feasible for, given our schedule and given what's going on. And then we have to seat 100+ people, probably outdoors. I don't think it will negatively impact the schools. The budgets are set separately and voted on separately. I think we'll be fine in May.
Okay, Thanks, I think Anne Marie got off. Nope, not yet, she's still on.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. So you guys are thinking May 8th. That's the alternate date that you're thinking?
Yes, there's a Saturday, the Saturday is the 8th, and then the subsequent voting would be on a Tuesday. Yes, yes,
Okay.
yep,
All right.
Thank you.
I will take that to our meeting on the 12th.
yep.
Thank you.
Okay,
Quick question too, she was, Emery was questioning how that worked with Windsor and stuff. How do we find that out? Do we need to find that out?
well, if the SU budget is adopted by 12 board members, 3 from each town.
Okay. yeah.
Okay, and it's not voted on by the general public.
Oh, okay,
So
okay,
each town votes on their school budgets, but the SU budget is voted on by 12 members
separate.
separate. So there's no conflict of voting on that budget. The budget of Weathersfield is voted on by Weathersfield.
Gotcha,
So, and the year end is
okay, thank you.
June 30th for both. The only danger is what John pointed out, even for the town, is the risk is what happens if you get a no vote. You've got to try to get going in a hurry to have a revote, hopefully before the year end. May 11th probably would really make it,
Barely wiggle room,
yeah,
like 30 days.
yeah.
Historically, it usually passes anyways.
Yep, yep. And I don't know, every year's different. Every year's different.
Well, school budget barely passed last year. I think it's by like less than 10 votes.
Right.
It
Yep,
did pass.
yep, yep. Just need one.
Yep, just need one.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to, let's go to town manager report. So thank you. So we've gotten those two out of the way. We tabled that for now. Brandon, are you still there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead. Just before you start, Brandon had a lot of problems this morning. He, so if he has to duck out, we'll take another pause. But he called me early this morning and he said that he had something wrong with a tooth. He raced to the dentist within a couple of hours. He had one pulled out in the back of his head. That is not a fun project, and if he needs to take a break, he's gonna tell me he needs to take a break, and then we'll take a pause. So I appreciate him coming in. I'm sure he's not very well. He's probably got some medicine. I told him we could have helped him out on his dentist visit, that one of us could have held a hammer, but that didn't go over too good. So, and cheaper.
Got
But,
stanchions?
yeah, we got stanchions and other fun cow tools. Yeah, but he didn't take me up. So with that, go ahead, Brandon, and if you need to stop, then by all means, just say you need to stop, and I'll try to find something to talk about, or we'll take another pause.
All right, sounds good to me. Thanks for the introduction. I just have a couple of things in my report to update the board on, and any residents interested. The first is a citizen's complaint, a formal citizen's written complaint that our office has received on November 3rd of this year. We've interviewed all parties involved, reviewed video footage, and evaluated this information. I think the first, and I was talking to Dave a little bit about this over the course of the complaint, and a couple of others. The main thing is, if there's an employee, a contractor, or an elected official that has an issue, that person should immediately contact the town manager or our front offices and let us know what's going on. I don't think it's the correct approach to directly go to that person that you have an issue with and cause a confrontation. There's a procedure in place for initiating and resolving complaints, and the procedure was made for a reason. This way confrontations don't occur and the issue can be mediated correctly. We have human resource duties and responsibilities, and we take that stuff seriously. So the complaint I'm referencing here could have been resolved differently. I will be issuing letters to all parties involved in the November 3rd incident, referencing the process for handling personnel issues in the future, including the flow of communication between all entities in town on town payroll, including Golden Cross Ambulance and Hartford Dispatch. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Any questions here from the board on this? Nothing? Okay, go ahead, keep going, Brandon.
All right, the second thing is the Tenny tree. So earlier this year, the state of Vermont approached me about removing the Tenny tree. Since that time, the principal, clerk, and I have been holding meetings with members of the Conservation Committee, Historical Society. We've met with 4 Tenny relatives over the past couple of weeks and coordinated this information to the state. So the relatives have decided what they would like to see as a memorial for Romaine Tenny. So we'll be meeting with the state of Vermont this week to discuss hiring an architect, artist, and construction company. And we plan on holding workshops at Martin Memorial Hall this spring with the Tenny relatives and the state of Vermont to draft the content for the display boards. So if anyone would like to attend those workshops, please reach out to me and let me know.
Has the state of Vermont represented that they are going to enter in any funding on this or not? Have you had any discussions about that, or what's going on with that? So when you said the word architect, I said, oh, that must be money.
Yeah, so of course, there's what everybody wants, and then you go into negotiations with the state, and they tell you what they can do, and maybe that plan shifts. They seem very confident that they can accommodate the requests of the Tenny family. So, I mean, if you do it, you want to do it right the first time. Hire an architect, get the designs for the display boards and the content correct, and a construction company. They are proposing a concrete slab with an overhang and display boards under.
Okay.
Plexiglass display boards. So.
Okay, hold it. Hold it, Brandon. John had a question.
Brandon, is the consensus that the tree can go anytime?
Yeah, that is the consensus. So I'm gonna reveal that information to them. I wanted to meet with each Tenny board member first and just make sure that they were all on the same page. And everybody agrees the tree should come down. So I'm gonna talk to the state this week and let them know what the Tennys are requesting. I mean, they've also offered to preserve parts of the tree for anybody that would like a part of that tree.
Good. Joey?
2 things. I would actually be interested in a part of that tree. And the second thing is, if you need any help getting anything off the ground, please reach out. I know a couple people who would probably be interested in this project.
Absolutely. I'll contact you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, is that it for the town manager report, or did you have anything else?
I have 2 other items. The third item is the local government expense reimbursement grant. So that's the grant that covered our COVID expenses between March 1st and December 31st. And we submitted that reimbursement request at the beginning of December. In the last meeting, I told the board that we were waiting on that direct deposit, and we did receive it on December 23rd. So we've been fully reimbursed for all of our COVID expenses. However, as of January 1st of this year, there is no funding in place, as far as I know, for unanticipated COVID-19 expenses. So I'm not sure if there's anything being worked on. Do you know of anything, John?
Not that I'm aware of.
So we're just going to be careful. I mean, we really, I mean, we've prepared. I mean, we have the iPads, we have the laptops, we purchased a good amount of masks, we have a lot of supplies. So I think we're good for a little bit, but there may be additional expenses in the future, and they may or may not be covered, as far as I know.
The way I understand it, Brandon, there could be money for future expenses, but what they're not going to allow you to do is to fill in a hole behind you.
Yep, that makes sense.
I see a note up there, so I don't know if Chris Whidden is on or not, but somebody says I'd like to participate in this project as well. I'm assuming that might be the Tenney project, but is that?
Yes, I think Chris.
Okay, good. So you got that note. So I would encourage everybody who's interested in that to at least contact the office here, because I don't know the timetable. I agree with John. I thought perhaps that it would be down before winter. I don't know what their plans are. Obviously, it's still being formulated, but I just saw that, so I figured I'd mention it. So go ahead. Is there one more thing? You said you had two more things, so.
Yes, this is the last thing. So, fire department contracts and fire department budget. So again, our administration met with the Ascutney Volunteer Fire Department several times since the last select board meeting. And basically in these meetings, we're reviewing each section and just kind of discussing back and forth how we can make that section work, how would the flow of communication work, how is finance going to work, and going through that process. So there might be a couple of areas the department would prefer to see modified. So I'm going to compile a list and I'll have those in either the next meeting or the meeting after that from both departments, just some things that they may want to see tweaked or changed. And the contract allows for amendments. So if the board would like to see, is that okay with everybody?
It's okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So AVFD provided us their accounting records and we began merging the town's budget with their accounting records. So we reviewed how the reimbursement clause in the contract will be carried out. All expenses are now being invoiced to the town for payment and will flow through our internal controls the same way as all other departments operate. So basically, I was taking, or we're taking Ascutney's accounting records and we're merging them into one fire department budget for Ascutney. And we're separating out West Weathersfield. So there'll be two different budgets, and those budgets will include all of the department's operation expenses. So we've held two of those meetings with Ascutney, and I've met with West Weathersfield as well. We're meeting again Thursday. So that's on the proposed calendar for the budget presentation tonight. I have the fire departments as the two last budgets we're presenting, and then the transfer station. Does anybody have any questions?
No, but I have a.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just a point, we were discussing this earlier, Brendan, I want to make sure you're aware of this, and maybe this is based on where we're at this year, but we need these budgets wrapped up by no later than January 25th, I believe, is roughly the date. If town meeting were happening on the second Tuesday in March, and that's because of warning periods and stuff, I just wanted you to be very aware of that moving forward. I'm sure this is probably because of the COVID and the plan that we're going to move the town meeting, but we've got to be done with budgets before we get to the end of January.
I agree. So what date should we begin the discussions in FY '22 for FY '23?
May 12th.
What?
That's the day after the vote.
Well, no, that would be March 4th, the day after the vote. We haven't moved the vote yet. We haven't moved anything.
Okay.
Is that, well, you heard me say earlier that if we, if we're gonna do what everybody wants to do, and I support it, just to keep, Brandon is knee-deep in all his numbers now. To think that we're gonna drag it out for 3 more months because we can is just the wrong thing to do. Just because we wouldn't vote until May. So I think it's just to get on with life and to let him finish what he started and rather have it all just kind of drag out for like 2 or 3 more months to decide. So, I don't know, the planning board meets next Monday, right? I don't know everybody's schedule, but I don't see us wrapping all this up in one more meeting. So we haven't even listened to, some of it. So we'll have to decide whether we're gonna have a meeting next week.
You might as well plan on it.
Yeah.
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 I think so, but I don't want to interfere with the planning board.
Tuesday open?
I don't know. I don't know the schedule about this building. I'd have to ask Brandon. And I don't know his schedule. I don't know what's going on yet.
My comment wasn't meant as anything more than just constructive criticism moving forward. I wasn't trying to be critical.
No, I'm not criticizing. I just have learned that when we immediately just out of the blue say we're gonna meet on a certain night, that it is a conflict with other people and then the building. So there's 2. So I don't know.
Well, if we stick to the schedule that's in our packet, we'd be done in the middle of February.
But that's beyond the warning.
If we don't move town meeting.
If we don't move
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I heard both of you say that we'd like to finish by the 25th or so.
Well, if we're not moving town meeting, we have to.
Correct.
If we're moving it.
That's all I'm saying.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Should make the 19th a very busy evening.
Long night, bring pizza.
Well, that's why I said we'd be meeting next week. Is there any other comments on Brandon's, or the schedule, the tentative schedule? And assuming that we probably might meet next week, so, because if we're gonna take up highway now and only like 2 or 3 components, I think it is, of the general fund, so there's still some general fund left for even a presentation to be made, so let's just think about that, all of you, and maybe tomorrow or within the next day or 2, that Brandon will reach out to all of us and ask what night is good, and it probably will be Tuesday, but we'll see. Let's move off now the calendar and go to appropriations. So in our packet tonight is again the same list of appropriations, and then immediately below that is the policy about what it speaks to. So has any of the board had any feelings about what to do with the appropriations? And the question is this, whether or not we put them in the total amount, just put it into the general fund and vote on it that way within the budget, or historically, my memory says that regardless of where they fit, and I see the policy says that the board can have a choice under $500 or some such, they give you a little wiggle room about if it's under $500, you can put it in the general fund. When there's a first timer, and it doesn't matter what they're speaking to, generally, that entity comes and asks to be put on the ballot, and we vote on it on a special article, and then whoever they are comes and speaks before the town to vote on that way, the first time. And then after that, my memory was that every 5 years they come up for renewal.
That's how it used to be until this was
Till the change
passed.
was made, yeah. So,
I thought there was this got amended at some point after 2017, but I may be wrong.
oh,
If you read the whole thing, it's really, I'm going to call it clumsy is the wrong word.
Yeah.
It seems awfully complicated. You know, the people got to come in right during budget season. They got to give a dog and pony show them what they do. I mean, some of it's okay, but
well, the first time I think is important, because a lot of people, including me, I know what the visiting nurses do, and I couldn't say enough good about them, because they come around to people that are in their homes that can't get around, and it's very critical. But some of these things I don't know what they do, and I think it's important to talk about what they do. So that's their chance to come to speak to that. if we just put it underneath into the general fund, and then I don't know about you guys, but if I get questioned on something, and I normally do from time to time, and I have no idea what they do, and then they'll say, the person that's asking the question is, well, you're supposed to know what they do, or you wouldn't put the money in there, you dummy. And I think that's fair. So I have no idea what every little thing in the budget does that gets put into the general fund.
Well, we have a policy right here, so.
Yes.
We gotta follow it, I would think.
Well, we haven't followed it because we haven't asked any of these people to come in.
Well,
Well, but do they, and I'm not gonna read it right out, but does it mean every year they come in and put it?
Two,
What's that?
every two.
Every 2
Yep,
years?
2 years.
Okay. So we
And some
can't,
of these are on the 2-year cycle and some aren't.
so we
I
can't
know
tell,
Suzanne knew.
we can't tell from this list who's two and who's not?
Suzanne, I think Suzanne knew.
Suzanne, can you tell us that?
There's actually just one which isn't on the list. It's cover home repair. They submitted last year the first time. Everyone else was the second time last year. And they all came in and presented on January 7th or called in last year.
So is there any, without me looking, then Suzanne, you can help a lot here. Are there any first timers here? Are the two in the white first timers or not?
Cover home repairs, the one she was just talking about.
Okay.
big
I
heavy-
see two in the white. Why are they white or, oh, they're missing. Okay, so there's no money they're being allocated, so they shouldn't even be on here, right? They're not asking for any money, apparently.
Well, they have requested, but the information that we received is not correct. So I would assume that the board wouldn't approve any appropriations.
And they didn't, between this meeting and the last meeting, they didn't get back to you?
Correct.
Okay. In the green, are there any first-time requests?
No, the only one is cover home repair.
Okay, so all the others were funded?
Let
No,
me reword that, Dave.
okay?
Everyone in the green had their 2 years up, and it would be a renewal this time. Does it make sense?
No,
So they were appropriated, they got it passed last year, they still had to represent last January, but that was their second year. They got letters sent that counts as their second year.
Paul?
So Big Heavy World, it says the amount requested, and then it says last year, there's nothing in that, so,
Correct, they had requested last year, but they weren't appropriated. The board decided not to approve their request. Now this year they are requesting again, so if you would approve those $250, they would get it for 2 years.
So they've never been approved, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so does the policy speak to then I consider them a first timer. Does the policy, help me out then without me reading it, and I'm just trying to move the meeting along. Does the policy speak to first timers where they would be required to come before the voters and then present their
Yes,
case?
they will have to.
Yeah, okay. So that, I mean, that's what I would suggest for any of them, if they were first timers, that that if we see fit to put them on the warrant, the warning, I mean, ask them to come in and present their case for the money that they're asking for in a special article. Not in the general fund, because you would tie it to the general fund and ask them. Because we've had that happen, we've done that before with other entities.
But are we gonna do that for the $100, like for
It
$100?
says for $250.
For $250, okay.
Well, no, it wasn't really, my words weren't attributed to the money. It was to the fact that they're the first timers.
Gotcha.
It really didn't bother me about, well, money always bothers me. But it's more to the point that they've never been funded, that this is their opportunity to come to speak for what they do, like others have done.
I wanna, if we're gonna give them money, I'd like to hear them. I don't wanna.
Sure.
Or the voters should hear them. I don't know that we should, the voters should hear them.
Absolutely, but the voters come through here.
I don't know what's going on, so I just, Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say, Dave, but I was gonna separate it, maybe that, like, they came last year and the select board said no.
I
So
believe
if
you're
they're,
right.
if they're coming back, again, this time they should go before town meeting. They should go before the voters, not us. Because the board's already said no once, just a year ago, not like 5 years ago or something.
Well, give them a chance.
Yes, give them a chance.
They-
Put 'em
they
on the town
requested
floor.
it.
But, yes.
I'm not shooting them down.
That
I'm
would
just
mean it
saying,
would be an article, and they'd have to speak to the article
speak to the article.
at town meeting.
Yes.
That-
Yes.
right. And then the voters say yes or no on it.
Okay, is there consensus that that's the way we'd like to handle that one, or not?
In this case, it would be just,
This is the only one, right, Suzanne? It's a first timer, and it was not, all the rest are done, because I'd like to lump all the rest in a group here and get this.
Yes.
We need to make some decisions.
I agree.
So that, the rest of them on this list, then without, save for the fact that the two that have not reported, so Cover Home Repair and Windsor County Youth Services, they've not presented their budget, so they're not gonna be on the list.
Cover home repair did last year, they were approved last year the first time, and that would be their second time, so they would automatically be approved this time if we go by the policy.
But we don't have any, but the money is zero, so when the money's zero, that's what we're gonna fund them. There's no money plugged in here on our sheet. And actually, the same is true for the very last one, which is Windsor County Mentors, $0.
Okay, I think you're looking at a different sheet. I think it wasn't updated from last time.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay. Are there numbers plugged into the one that you have now?
Yes, it's $480 for Windsor County Mentors.
I remember that being said at the last meeting.
And it's $400 for cover home repair.
Okay. So that changes the bottom line.
It does.
By $880.
So what was the Cover Home Repair, 400?
400.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so what is the board's feeling on that new news? Do you want to just put them all together in one, and then it's going to be placed in the general fund now? That is not on, none of those other, however many on here, 20 or whatever, are going to be in the general fund and not on special articles.
Except Big Heavy World.
Except Big Heavy World, yes. They'll have their chance. They asked to be voted on. Yes. So they got turned down by the board last year, and now they're getting a chance to get voted on.
Yes.
The only thing, they still aren't meeting the criteria, some of the criteria of the 6 different things that they're supposed to submit
Okay.
for this year. I don't care what we do this year, I just hope that this board makes this a whole lot easier in the future.
If they
So
haven't met,
the policy as it reads though says $500 and over would be brought to the voters.
Yeah, does.
Joey?
Does that mean $500 per year or in total over the 2 years that they have to present for?
And it doesn't,
What they're requesting per year.
and it doesn't differentiate about who has to turn in the items 1 through 6 between the $500 ones or the $12,000 one. But
Okay, well, then I just can't go along with the wording, because here's the clarification for me. It says approved funding requests, which I don't know who approves them, under $500 will be included in the proposed general fund budget, so they cannot be used out in a special article. However, who approves the funding request under $500?
this board,
This is next one.
This board.
well, okay, it says approved funding requests under $500. It doesn't say anything or address at all if a funding request is denied. which is what we're dealing with here, is even though it's under $500, it's a request that was denied by the board a year ago.
And then it's a new request in its entirety.
And it just gets resolved here with no other recourse. I guess that's where I have my problem with it. I don't care. If you guys want to vote on it, let's
Vote on it.
well, do we have all the information? That was another valid point you made. Items 1 through 6, do we have those, all that stuff?
Yes, we do.
Okay, then let's take a vote on it.
Okay, what would the motion be? Somebody make the motion, and then we can have a discussion on the motion.
What it be there?
Motion
We
to
would-
approve Big Heavy World, a request for $250 under the appropriations budget.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Motion been made and seconded to approve Big Heavy World under the for the appropriations budget
$250.
for $250. Is there any discussion? And that will be under the appropriations budget located in the general fund,
Yes.
within the general fund. Any discussion?
What do they do?
That's
I believe
what I
that
was
is
gonna
the
ask.
group that we heard last year that were actually up in Chittenden County somewhere that had something to do with music. That's all I remember. And we felt at that time that it didn't provide a service down on this end, and it didn't deserve our support.
Okay.
That ring a bell?
Has that
Yes.
changed? Yes. Has that changed? Does anybody know if that's changed?
No, I don't.
Is there any evidence? Suzanne, are you aware of any evidence of them working with anybody in our area?
No, it's a radio station that is broadcasting.
Probably a low power.
Ready for the vote?
It is a volunteer-run independent statewide music office and archive of Vermont-made music, working to inclusively promote and preserve all kinds of music made across Vermont.
That's better.
Okay, the motion been made and seconded to approve the $250 dollar amount requested for Big Heavy World, I think that's the name, right? I don't have my glasses on. To be included in the appropriations portion of the general fund budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay.
Okay. Doesn't work. My comment is that I would encourage them to submit a request, perhaps if they're still interested, as a special article. Because it doesn't speak to, even though this board turned down that request, we could still get it in time for a special article if they so choose. I think that's the way to handle it, but we just adhered to the policy right now. We took a vote and we did it. So now I'd like a motion on the floor to approve all the other outstanding requests for appropriations to be included in the general fund budget.
So moved.
And the number happens to be $23,203. That's what the total just came to.
Second.
Okay, motion been made and seconded to approve the remaining
Did you have that number?
For how much? I'm sorry.
23,302?
203.
203, sorry.
That's added with the Big Heavy World, which you just voted down, so you need to take the 250 out of there.
No.
No?
Oh, yes, you're right.
22,103.
Yes, you're right.
what I thought.
That's correct. I'm sorry. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll add, we haven't taken any vote. So the number is
22,953.
22,953. Did you get that, Brandon, Suzanne, and Rosalie? 22,953.
That is including 400 for cover home repair, and 480 for Windsor County Youth Services, and subtracting 250 for Big Heavy World.
Okay,
Okay.
any discussion? All these will be included in the general fund budget vote, so there's no special article. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, thank you. That's all decided. Thank you. You on now, Brandon? You're still on?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna move to FY '22 highway budget.
Has the board had an opportunity to view the proposed budget narrative for FY '22, draft number 2, dated 12/31/2020?
No. But I'll keep going.
I heard one no.
Well, that's okay. So this is a document that we decided to create and put on our new website to give everybody a narrative on what our budget looks like and any changes between this year and next year. So the cover page, it just said, the end product will say proposed budget, and the draft will go away. That we're presenting it, and then we'll just go to select board, town manager's office, and finance. The next page is a table of contents. So this table of contents will change. This is only the table of contents for how we can navigate through all of the budgets that will come before you over the next couple of weeks. So the end product will break it down: general fund, highway fund, and solid waste. But for the purpose of the meeting, there's also attachments, and then there's a tentative budget review calendar. So that's one of the things I wanted to discuss with you tonight.
Well, but we're on the highway budget, so it wasn't about the calendar.
Okay, sorry.
So we're ready to go into highway budget.
Okay. So due to the state of emergency, the highway department is proposing the same tax revenue as FY21. So as you will see on page 4 of the proposal, does everybody have the proposal?
Yes.
Okay. The highway department anticipates a $1,487 increase in state aid to highway and a $23 increase in permit revenue. Revenue from other departments decreased by $1,700 because the highway department will no longer contract its employees to the Escapin Water District. There are some fluctuations in expenses which allowed us to absorb our debt service from purchasing the motor grader and dump truck. Personnel expenses decreased by $24,000. Office expenses decreased by $185. Utilities decreased by $158. Highway garage and truck expenses decreased by $10,000. And road materials and repairs decreased by $5,000. Our debt service increased by $38,000, which again includes the $17,000 payment for the dump truck and $16,000 payment for the motor grader. The interest has also been accounted for in this budget. There were no variances in fees and permits, nor in reserves. And this budget includes no decreases or additions in the number of workers. So if you turn the page, you'll be able to see a snapshot of our revenues between FY18 and FY22 and the respective variances. So between FY18 and FY19, for example, there was a $64,000 variance in tax revenue for the highway department. Between FY19 and FY20, there was a $25,000 variance in the positive. Between FY20 and FY21, there was an $862 variance, and this year we're proposing no variance. You can kind of skim down and you can see the variances for each one. State highway 1487, permit revenue, service to other departments, and then we come down to the fund balance, which I think this is something we should probably discuss. Between FY19 and FY20, there was a $19,000 variance. Between FY20 and FY21, there was a $93,000 variance. So our books are showing a $211,000 cumulative highway surplus. However, in the audit, the auditors are accounting for the entire loan payment that we took from ourselves. And then basically what we're doing is we're charging the highway budget annually to pay back that loan. So the audit shows, and Steve contacted the auditors about it, so it shows a $21,000 surplus, but the numbers account for the total loan being paid back in this year, in FY20 when we took it out. So does anybody have any questions about Highway Department revenues?
Not revenue, but you just lost me there, because the money's real, and even though you took the loan out, the surplus is still there. And it's going to be assumed that it's going to be paid back over a term of 5 years, not 1 year. So the money's still there, even though you took it out, right? I mean, and that loan was for the paving, wasn't it, the Center Road?
Yeah, so it was $199,000, and basically you just divide that by 5, and that's what we're charging the highway budget annually, so that's how it gets paid back.
So who said that comes out of the highway budget, and why didn't it come out of borrowing off of reserves? Because that was the motion. The motion, to my memory, wasn't that it was gonna be directly loaned out of the highway budget per se, that it was to be loaned out from our excess reserve accounts. So who said that we were loaning from the annual budget of the highway?
Just give me 1 second, please.
Because I think that's really not fair at all. To pick 1 year out and then loan off an annual operating budget.
So this $38,000 Center Road paving payment was also voted for last year, so it's something that we carried forward from last year. So this was proposed for FY21, so I similarly proposed it for FY22. Steve sent me that payment, so I assumed since it was the payment will take it, last year, it starts because that's what our debt service shows. But if you're telling me that this $38,000 wasn't supposed to be part of the highway budget, then we also need to change that for last year as well.
No, I mean, no, I understand that the paving got done. I understand that there's a payment for an amount of money, but my question is specific. I don't recall making motions to fund money out of an annual operating budget. It was to borrow off our reserve accounts, which were $1 million. It wasn't.
Yeah. And then the $38,000 that goes, so basically that $38,000 we're paying back to the reserves. Is that correct, Rick?
Well, to get on Dave's point, the town borrowed money from the general reserves. That money should show $190,000 going from general reserves to the highway fund, and then the highway fund paying back $38,000 plus interest every year for the next 5 years. Right now, they have it all coming out of the highway department. They took $190,000 out of the highway department in 1 year. Plus we're paying it back, like to ourselves, but now we're in debt. So the loan we took doesn't show coming from the general fund reserves, like Dave mentioned. That's what the motion was.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I want the board to remember this, 'cause I've already had this conversation with Brandon. The board needs to remember that the banks are the banks for a reason. The town's not a bank, even on of itself. We get stuck on this little interest thing about, oh my God, we're gonna save, $2,000 in interest because we can borrow cheaper from ourselves than we can from a bank. The problem becomes, the books become very muddy. And it's not worth it. You have to say that when you bid these projects, that it's worth it to try to lower the $300,000 or the $190,000 project by a bid, and don't worry about the interest, because the interest is only 2% right now. If it was 8 or 10%, well, I may have a different tune, but it's not. So the interest is $3,800 over the whole loan. We should be more concerned with the amount of the bid of the paving or any equipment that we buy, whether it's a $300,000 or $400,000 piece of equipment, not the interest rate right at the moment. And let the bank be the bank. Don't let the town be the bank. Because this is, now the auditors are saying that all that surplus is gone from the annual operating budget. The surplus is real in the highway fund, and it's real in the general fund as well. It's been $100,000 for 2 years in a row. Set aside the point that we borrowed money from the general fund reserves to pay for this loan. The surpluses are real in the highway budget, and the danger is mixing these two funds. Mike?
I'm confused on one piece of this, and it's what Ray said. And that's important, what Ray said. You're saying that we were supposed to take the $199,000 out of a reserve account, like a general fund reserve account?
Well, we have about $1 million in
In
reserves.
reserves, okay.
There's-
Okay. So, but we never took the money out of those accounts? We've been only taking it from the highway?
So the paper trail, according to the auditors, the paper trail shows that we took $190,000 from the highway department to pay for paving. And now we're paying it back at $38,000 plus interest. So there's no paper trail showing, correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, but it sounds like there's no paper trail taking money out of general fund,
Reserve.
surplus or reserve, like
No.
it's supposed to have happened.
It's not from a surplus in the general fund, it's the reserve accounts.
Yeah, it's not showing that. It's showing that the money's coming, all 190,000 is coming from the highway department in 1 year.
Which is bizarre to me. I don't know who made that move.
Is there a way
The
to
auditors,
fix,
I don't know
is
what
there
our
a way to
records
fix
are.
that?
It's a matter of bookkeeping.
I hear what he's saying, but I don't agree with the philosophy of it.
Neither do I, because that's the risk when we go borrowing against our reserve accounts. Because the mindset is, oh, we're gonna be able to do it cheaper. I've heard Steve, I'm disagreeing with him. The bank is the bank. The town's not a bank. It's not in the delinquent tax business. It's not in any of this other thing. You keep it simple.
Well, I agree with all of that, but I'm just trying to look at the problem that exists, and that's.
Yes, somebody says that the money came out of the surplus, which has been generated basically for 2 straight years. No,
Oh.
this highway surplus, and now they're saying they took all the surplus, used it as a loan, as they used it up, as a loan for paving, and they didn't take it out of the reserve accounts. They just took the highway surplus on the annual budget. That's what we're being told now.
That's what the auditors did. I don't know what the town did. I don't know the town records. So
Right.
I can't speak on that.
Paul.
But the money should have come from the reserves for the general fund. That's what the motion was that the board voted on.
Yes, Paul.
So, the auditors don't do our books. Our books are already there. So, I guess you need Steve, correct, who's not here. So my recommendation is to go back, get the motion, it's easy to find in the minutes, and then go back to the accounting and say, if it's not what happened, why did you do this? They need to fix it.
They need to fix it. Yes.
I mean,
If you borrow from the reserve accounts, you borrowed from the reserve accounts. You didn't borrow from the annual operating budget.
And again, what we need, I feel we need some checks and balances to understand how, so much getting moved here and there, and
Yes.
it's not.
That's why I'm telling you right now, when you take a loan, and the same thing I think is gonna happen to the grader, because we borrowed against ourselves again in the grader. I voted no. Go to the bank, make the loan, done. Then you know you have to pay People's Bank a finite amount, and you know you have so much in reserves. And when this board changes, or management changes, it's the same thing. So can we ask, or whatever, we can go back to the minutes, Brandon, or Suzanne, or Olivia, or somebody can look up those minutes and get us to the next meeting, please, for that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, let's move on a little bit. I don't know where we're at, but
I
John.
do have
you
a question on the revenue side, Brandon.
Okay,
You're showing $211,257 audited fund balance. Is that 100% of the audited fund balance from last year?
Yeah, so that $211,000 surplus would be the cumulative surplus for the highway department as of June 30th FY20.
So you've gotten that checked, and I know you've been you've called me 3 or 4 times on this, and because it is a little upsetting would be kind of a polite word. I mean, that's, you know, if the highway budget's $1 million or $1.2 million, that's a 18% surplus. Just start doing the math. Does that include the money that got taken out for the loan? So do you minus that by 190,000? Does that disappear? I know we're working with 6/30/20, right?
Yes.
That's not a projected, that's an actual fund balance at the end of the year on June 30th of 2020?
So I think it's really important to figure out why we had a surplus. Where did that surplus come from? Did we have more revenue? Did we have more expenses? Did we save money on expenses? How did we accumulate that money? So if you look at the revenues overview between FY18 and FY20, and you also look at the expenses, you can see where the fluctuations are, and you can see how the surplus became $211,000. So I think, you know, to your point, that does seem like a very large surplus, and the only way to correct it is to look at those variances in the past and see if there's anything that we could do in the future to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Well, and that's why I wrote down really in a hurry when you went through the list of the 2 payments that are going to come up, because my next question is, at the very outset of this, which I don't agree with, at the very beginning of the summary here, when you said that the highway is asking for the same amount of taxes that it did a year ago, there's some assumptions there. There's assumption that the grand list is the same, right? Which we don't know yet. And if you look at, it's not hard for me to figure out where the fund balance came from on the highway. If you look at FY18, the amount of taxes was $857,000, and FY21, it was $946,000. That's pretty close to $100,000 right there in taxes from people. Yeah, that's half of the surplus right there, more taxes. So if we're going to propose a budget that's like trying to get to the same as what we're doing this year, you just told me a little bit ago that the dump truck payment was $17,000 and the grader payment is what, $16,000, the new one?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
so that's $33,000. What would be the amount of dollars in the change in the budget for a 2% pay raise for all the employees? Do you know that amount? Is that somewhere in here easy to find or not?
Looks like about
What would be
60.
the total amount?
Yeah.
Or the total cost?
Yeah,
The total cost of the 2% pay raise?
yeah.
Yeah, so the FY22 Highway Department budget, you should have that. And if you go to page,
6,400.
Okay, so $6,000 or $7,000, let's say. So here's where I'm going with this in a hurry. So if you take $33,000 worth of new debt that we're piling onto the highway, which has to be included, and then you take another, let's say, I'll be generous, let's say $7,000, so you got $40,000. So if we had the same budget that we did a year ago and we generated a $100,000 surplus, now we've still got $60,000 that we're still looking for. Otherwise, we're gonna generate another surplus.
Dave?
Yes. Go ahead.
There's several variables that happened last year. One was low fuel prices. We had a really light winter. So we didn't have overtime. We didn't have a high salt budget. And you put a spending freeze on the highway department. So I didn't buy extra tires and all the blades and all the chains that I usually buy at the end of the year for the next year. So there's a lot of variables there that I really am nervous about having huge cuts. And you should, I'm just saying, there's a lot of variables.
Well, I'm not really agreeing with your phrase, huge cuts. I haven't got there. I'm trying to be, and I know that diesel fuel's up. It's up by, I know all about it. It's up by, and I'm sure that it's up by you guys by at least 10%, maybe 15%. All I'm trying to do is when the budgets are put together, I am trying to learn what is needed and then give you what's needed. But to keep thinking that we're going to be year after year after year, for me, having a surplus of that kind of money is not acceptable. We're either doing then the budgets really are kind of worthless, really, for me, to say, or tell me that you need it and then stand in there and use it. But if it's not going to be, then you can't get there. Mike, you have a question?
No, just a point, to the point that Ray just made. If there was a spending freeze last year and he didn't buy chains and tires and stuff like that, then that money is there and by law used for the same purpose it was intended
The following year.
the following year.
Yes.
So the money's there to do that stuff that you didn't do last year now.
According to even this audit right here that we just looked at.
That's correct.
Yeah, so really, it's irrelevant when or,
We're talking about a brand new year.
right.
But there's, seems to be plenty of money left over from the year prior, so we're not even talking about like a new year. John?
The problem I have, or needs an explanation, when you go to the last few lines, the pink, green, and yellow one,
What page?
last page,
Last page, sorry.
and that's the one, I don't get all concerned with every line
Right.
but the revenue, including tax money and expenses, are shown to be equal, which is all well and good, but when you go to the revenue line, it's plugging in $211,257 of audited fund balance money. You've guaranteed yourself a 4-cent tax increase next year, because that money will not be there next year.
Why won't it be there next year?
Because you're using it. You've taken the accumulated fund balance and putting every penny of it into this year. If I'm reading this right. Am I reading that right, Brandon? Wish Steve was on.
I believe we expense it out. Let me see.
But the way this is, but the articles are worded like shall the voters approve X amount, of which X amount is to be raised by taxes. So you take that big number, and if it's the same number at 946, which is it was on the front of this thing, you divide it by the grand list, John, there's no way it could come up with 4 cents more on the tax rate. Because don't look at the papers for a minute. If you looked at the article that would be crafted and written, that's the amount that would be on your, divided into the grand list for the highway fund for the tax rate.
I know, but to get to the bottom line of of revenue to match expenses, it looks to me like the 211 is plugged in there, which would be everything.
No, it's so if you look at page 1, John, you can see the audited fund balance carried forward.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. It says $211,000.
Yeah.
Wait, surplus through budgets throughout a number of years, you expense it out. So if you go to page 3, you'll see the total amount that we've expensed out to reserves.
Yes, I can remember, and I actually, I didn't agree with it. I mean, I wasn't here at the board for a few years, but what happened was, at the end of each year, I can remember the administration lobbying for a transfer of the surplus funds to go into the 2 reserve funds for highway, either a motorized or there was an equipment fund, or maybe it was non-equipment. So that happened. So the reserve accounts were funded significantly by the surpluses of the annual operating budget. So I don't know what to think. I don't, the number that I've seen so many reasons and numbers and everything lately that I'm not that confident, and I don't like saying that. Paul?
I just a question for Ray. You had mentioned the items that you weren't able to buy or purchase due to a spending freeze. What would that come up to be? Is that 20,000? Is that 50,000? Like if you did what you normally would have spent.
I had $24,000 in salt that I didn't buy because I didn't need it. We have that much in our budget because that's an average over the course of multiple years.
Yep.
If you don't like winter, you don't use it. You have a heavy winter, you go over budget. The fuel was down because the prices went down. I spent my tire budget, but the year previous I had money left over in the budget, so I ended up buying like an extra set of tires for a truck. The year before that, I bought an extra set of tires. I bought a set of tires for the loader. So it's. I didn't do that this year because there was a spending freeze.
Is there any supplies or anything that you know that's prepaid right now at Highway?
As far as
I don't know. Is there anything that's been either bought or?
I don't have a credit anywhere.
No, not a credit. I'm talking about like in the facility.
Buying stuff in advance, it's a credit.
I was talking about.
I don't have anything. I have nothing that's not delivered that we paid for. I don't know.
That's inventory.
It's
You
not.
used
There's
up
no
all the
inventory.
gravel last weekend.
What's that?
Well, I'm just saying, you don't have a big stockpile of gravel, you have a few culverts, and that's probably about it.
Well, that's a better choice of words. I was asking for inventory of anything.
Tires or anything
Anything.
like that, yeah.
I know where you're going. But did everybody follow me early on? If you ask for the same amount of money in taxes, which that's what the first line says, ask for the same, $946,000. That for 2 years in a row has generated a $100,000 surplus. You can call it a freeze, you can call it anything you want to.
Yeah.
And so I just added up a pay raise, I added up the two other debt services, and that came to $40,000. You still have $60,000 somewhere in the budget to buy things that you might not have bought, even asking for the same taxes as you did a year ago.
And that's with 33,000 going to reserves as well. It's not like we're ignoring a reserve, right?
That's right.
Is that a special article?
$3,000 above and beyond the budget.
Oh, you put it in the highway budget?
Oh, but it's there.
But it's
too.
on the paper
there,
in front of
but it's
us,
there.
yeah.
Right there.
So it's located within, not voted on separately?
No,
It was voted on separately.
that was voted on separately, but it's still there.
But it's in our budget. It says includes 33,000 proposed
Right.
reserve and
Right.
fund balance. So that's what we're looking at here as well.
I mean, that money's
What
there.
is in, who can tell me what is in the two reserve accounts now? Is there somebody can tell me that?
So that's how the numbers are washing then.
No?
I'm sorry, Dave, you broke up. What was the question?
Who can tell me what dollar amounts are in the two reserve accounts at Highway right now? Not the operating budget, the two reserve accounts.
The designated ones.
Just give me 1 second. It should be in your packet. I thought I put it in there.
Oh, yes, it is.
It is, John? Oh.
It's in the top, isn't it?
Utilities,
Reserves.
permit.
Oh, yeah, reserves, the last line.
Yeah.
So, one is approved, but I don't know about the other one. There's two reserve accounts, and you're only showing one here. So one only has, $32,000 in it. That's not very much at all. I don't know which one it is. I don't know if it's the wheel fund or, whatever, however it's worded for non-wheels, just, I don't know. Does this budget, anybody can answer the question, does this budget have any paving in it?
50.
And it's $50,000 for paving, yes.
You plan on spending it in the next fiscal year or holding off till there's a little more? Ray?
Go ahead.
Right, do you plan on doing $50,000 worth of paving, or?
I have $50,000 from this year's budget that's not being spent, that needs to get moved to, the reserve for next year.
Yeah.
Plus the 50,000 in next year's budget. I'm gonna get a, updated quote on the paving project, see if I have enough. I might be about 30,000 short.
Okay. That's kind of where I was going, if you were trying to accumulate money, because if you're trying to accumulate money, it probably should be listed that way, not as an expense.
Right, we discussed that last time, about having a paving or.
Or just put it into the non-motorized reserve fund.
Right.
But we seem to have a fight with the auditors about having reserve accounts.
Well, not really, I mean, they just didn't want a gazillion little ones, if I remember right, and we consolidated quite a few.
And the $93,000, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought you used some of that for the down payment of the grader. Or did you take that out of reserves?
Yes. So that's another thing that I wanted to have a discussion on regarding the surplus. Where the board wants that money to come out of.
Well, I guess the good thing is, if you will, that on the first page revenue number matches the expense number on the last page, but I still don't understand how you can have where the 211, 257 line, if that's going to empty the undesignated reserve.
It should be a fund balance on the first page as a revenue, and then it expenses out as a fund balance on the bottom of the last page.
Okay, so those two numbers don't match, but they're off by about 30,000. If subtotal fund balance and reserves, it's a yellow line, I don't know if that's calculated in as an expense?
You should be paying $210,164 on page 3 of the highway budget. Under audited fund balance. Carry expense.
164.
And I don't know about the rest of the board, but I am not okay with that. So, I don't know what to do with it, but
It's pretty big.
it's too big. And
I don't mind seeing 100, but
I don't even want to see that, John. I want to see it go to a specific target. I don't like hanging around just in case. We've been through this rodeo before. From what I read on the law, and we may have a difference of opinion, it says that it shall be used for the same means that it was appropriated use the following year. So, you can spend it, use it. That's what it's saying. Mike?
You went back to the fiscal year 18 and 2020 highway tax needed. The difference between those numbers in 18 and 20 is $89,896. If you subtract that from the fund balance shown at the end of 2020, which is $97,845, it's roughly an $8,000 difference. So all the extra tax that was charged in that year ended up being a surplus that year. $8,000 is, that's just, that's
Yeah.
the come and go and here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I think it happens again, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes, it reoccurred.
Yes.
So here's the thing. I mean, I don't have a problem we're looking at the reserve accounts, which are like, does anybody, the one reserve account that's listed here says it's $33,000 in it. That's not very much money in a reserve account in a highway fund. Can anybody tell me what the second one is? There's two reserve accounts at highway.
Dave, that $33,000 is what we're proposing to add to reserves on top of what we have in reserves.
That's the
So that's not the total
last
amount
page,
that we-
just above the colored lines.
So highway equipment acquisition, that amount right now has 135,000, and the highway capital maintenance and improvements has 75,000 in it.
Okay, so that's a lot better news. So it's not But they're not, the two accounts are not zero
Right.
by any stretch.
What were the two numbers again, Brandon?
What's that, John?
What were the two numbers again, please?
135,000 in highway equipment and 75,716 in highway capital maintenance and improvements.
Okay, so the next question is this. Don't lose your train of thought about those two numbers. Is any of that money, is particularly the first one at 135,000, is any of that money going to be used when we actually get the new truck or get the new grader? Because that's kind of important.
Randy, you said that, yes. We had 40,000 that went in there for the sale of the truck, and it came back out. We took the 40,000 plus 35 for the sale of the truck. That reserve. So that's I think it was 70,000, 75,000. And I don't know what you did with the grader.
Well, we haven't taken,
$40,000 down payment on the grader, and I thought that was coming out of the 93.
Yeah, I think it was like 39,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, the purpose of putting the surplus in the budget like that is just to be transparent to the board and the residents of what we have, and then discuss what you guys want to do with it, on top of these reserves.
here's what I'm trying to get to. Maybe you didn't hear the question. The question was, you just told me there's 135,000 in the wheel fund for motorized vehicles in the highway. Is any of those funds going to be used to purchase the dump truck that we have not yet been delivered, or the grader that we have not yet been delivered?
I don't remember.
I don't either. But those are important questions.
Yes.
Okay,
The
yeah.
answer is yes.
Yes.
We voted to take $75,000 to put towards the dump truck out of the wheel reserve. 40,000 of which was the sale of the 03 Mac. 35 was something that was already in there. That was the last discussion that I recall having with the board.
Okay, so that will leave that, when we take delivery, that will drop that to 60,000.
Yes.
Okay, we're getting closer to where we need to be, at least for decision-making. Because,
And Brandon, I don't know what the decision was on the grader yet. I know there was a 30,000 or some odd amount of money that you had discussed taking out of the surplus from last year.
Yes, it was 30,500. We can take it out of the surplus, or we can take it out of a reserve. That's up to the board.
And then there was, I think, wasn't there like 7,000 more that was for the maintenance contract or the warranty or whatever it was?
yeah,
Something?
but
No,
I,
that's coming out of my repairs and supplies line. I lowered the line and added those were added in.
Oh, okay. I thought because I thought we paid for that up front.
we do, we have to pay Caterpillar.
Yeah.
And I remember we'd have to go through and look up the terms and the minute that we did that on. I signed that note, and it's getting ready to take delivery for that. It's not a done deal yet. So we took a loan out, and then we also took some out of the fund balance left over from last year. You'd have to go look at the minutes. You'd have to go look at the minutes.
Payments set up to come out of my budget, and it's coming out of the repairs and supplies. It's a separate line item. You can look at the budget and see it there.
I get that, but the loan has to be paid, whoever, the Caterpillar wants to get paid. So I think we actually took it out of money somewhere, and then we're saying, well, we don't need to service it because we've got a service contract. I understand that part, but I'm talking about the initial cost.
Yeah.
You gotta pay up
Pay
front.
it up front, and then it's being expensed out year over
Yes,
year.
that portion of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Any other questions?
Just, I gotta go back a little bit. Now I see Brandon, I see the two lines you're talking about with fund balance and reserves, and I see the yellow line that says fund balance and reserves, and there's about a $32,000 difference in those two numbers. I'm just trying to,
No, there shouldn't be. If you go on page 3, account number 12710690.00, audited fund balance carry forward expense, you should see 210.64 under FY22 proposed. Just we used $1,000 of the surplus to create this budget. But again, that number can fluctuate depending on what you guys decide to do with it, whether you want to carry it forward or use it for something. Is that not what you're showing, John?
Well, I see two lines, one on revenue labeled audited fund balance and carried forward reserve, 211,257. I see a yellow line on the last page that said subtotal fund balances and reserves, 243,164. And
Yeah, that also includes expensing out the $33,000 special article for the revenue out of the budget.
I think what it is it possible that it's the money we gotta pay ourselves back?
No, you have to look at the revenues. So those are two different things. So under revenues, it's 211,000 for the fund balance and 33,000 for this separate article for the appropriation. And then when you go to the expense side, you'll also see 210, and then you'll see 33,000 being transferred over into the reserve funds.
Okay.
So the numbers are actually, the numbers are only $1,000 different, and again, that's because we used $1,000 for the highway budget, rather than increasing the taxes.
Here's what I want the board to consider. I've spent a number of years listening to the fact that we really don't want to see the tax rate jump around, go up and down. We could do that this year. We could lower the tax rate on this by taking some of the $210,000 and applying it to a lower tax rate. I don't see the need to raise taxes in the highway fund, and I'm going to get there to the general fund too, because of the surpluses. But I do think the board needs to address where those go appropriately and move on. So either we put them into reserve accounts and then we don't have to ask the voters, they've already paid for it. So if we lower the account down to $60,000, which we're about ready to do because we bought a new piece of machinery, that's really not enough money. And I think we should put that account back up to where it belongs, or maybe do what VLCT would say to do, which would be to identify whatever the needs are and then appropriately put those into reserve accounts. For me, to let that kind of money float around into the annual operating budget is not a good answer for me. So that's where I'm at. It looks like we can function with the same amount of money we did the year before, fine. And the question is, do we apply, and now we just learned that 35 or 38,000, so it's not really 210, because we're gonna pay the grader in another week or two when we take delivery. So that's being minused out of that. There's approximately $170,000, let's say $150,000, to determine what to do with whether we put them into the reserve accounts. That's what I think. Mike?
What if we reduce the highway tax needed at the top by $60,000 down to $86,770? And then everything else stays the same. You factor that, you reduce that number by the $60,000 there, and it transposes over here. And the reason I say it and do it that way is this: if we have changes or something that comes forward from the state later on, we've been down this road before. When you set the tax rate in July or June, before the next fiscal year starts, you don't know what those numbers from the state are going to be, and they could actually push your tax rate up. So if we go ahead and reduce that down now, there, and then we get forced into an increase later, you're not going to see it. You've got it covered.
Well, I think you're talking maybe almost the same thing as where I want to be, but but to do what you want to do, you would ask them. I think you're going to have to someday. You're going to have to ask people for more money than $60,000 in a reserve for machinery or paving. You just are, because even if
the one problem I can see with the $60,000 reduction is next year, if the budget stays the same, you're still going to get the same amount of money. You're going to be right out of the gate with a $60,000 increase. because you're not gonna have another 60,000 put down in there.
But I go back to
All
eight, but I go,
But you're
well,
rolling
yes, but I go,
$93,000
Yes.
surplus. I mean,
but I'm gonna say, I go back to 18 to 2020, and $90,000 out of a $97,000 increase was surplus taxes.
yeah, we're looking at the budget like we're spending every penny, and whatever we take away is gonna have to go back in, but we're running $90,000 a year, 2 years in a row,
Yes.
surplus. That needs to be put in a bank
Last year, I
account.
had $23,000 surplus, it wasn't 90,000.
Well, the auditors are telling us what we're reading.
That's
Yeah.
not what I see here.
I'm not sure, we're only,
2020.
well, we're only,
2020 was last year, 2021 was this year we just finished.
well, we're reading a different number then, because the fund balances are printed in front of us. I don't know anything different than that.
Well, Raymond may be using a number, he spent $23,000 less than what was budgeted in expenses. That doesn't take into revenue side.
Well,
Yeah, if you look at revenues FY 18 to FY 22, the revenues overview first page, and you look at the fund balance, it does show a variance for FY 20 of $19,911.
John?
Are we gonna be proposing any special articles for equipment this year?
Yes, that's included in this budget, $33,000.
It's a special article? Or is it within the budget?
It's within the budget.
So it's not it's not a standalone article?
Yes, was it a standalone article last year, Ray?
Yes.
Okay.
See,
What are we replacing?
That's money to go to the reserves. Last year, it was brought up by the board to come up with $33,000 to put into the wheeled reserve.
Okay.
And Brandon's proposing to do that again this year.
But, so you're not proposing to buy any new equipment in 21, 22?
Correct.
Okay, that answers that question. The state aid to highway, you got that number from, you're pretty confident on that number? I'm not sure where you got it, but
That's basically the average over the past 5 years. So we don't get that number. We won't have that number before town meeting.
okay, that's important.
It's safe. We just took the average.
It might be a good idea to try to keep that fund balance where it is until you find out what the state aid is going to be.
Yeah, I agree.
You might be very scared. We can always have this discussion after the budget. If the money's still in there and you want to move to reserves or buy stuff with it or whatever, that could be a discussion for a later day. It's my opinion.
We're having a tax discussion on Friday, and I may have the opportunity to ask where the gasoline tax, because that's where 99% of the highway money comes from.
I'm still struggling with fund balances increasing by about $90,000 a year for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Each year after year after year. And that's not a matter of spending. That's not a matter of what's in the budget to buy this or that or any other reserve. That is simply a matter of taxes being received and fund balances growing. Period. It's unrelated to
So,
spending.
4 years ago, before I took over, there was a big discussion about a fund balance and the necessity to have a certain percentage of your budget in the fund balance. The town drafted a policy for a certain percentage to be in there.
I
It was
remember.
signed by the board, put into effect. There's a policy, I think it's 13 to 15%, I believe. Once that cap was reached, the monies were to be, well, obviously you're gonna drop your budget down if you can, but if you can't, if it's like salt left over, $23,000 left over from not being salt, having bought salt, it was gonna be discussion with the board as to where they were gonna put it, either in reserves or back into the budget to help reduce taxes for the following year. That was the plan as of 4 years ago, the year before I took over.
Yes, I recall that, Ray.
I've never seen that policy.
10% of the budget is like what, 120,000?
I've not seen that policy, and I'll have a copy tomorrow morning, I guarantee you. Joey, do you have a question?
I'm just still uncomfortable with this amount of money floating around, just extra. I strongly feel it needs to go into a reserve account and then be distributed if we need it.
Yes, I'm on board with that. Because it's not like, it's prepaid.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to ask the voters for another $33,000, because they just did. It's there. It's not in make-believe land, it's there. I just don't, we have the rainy day fund, fully funded. That can go into highway if needed, or not. $138,000 by audit. How much is enough? That's the question of the day when you run these budgets. How much is enough to have over and methodically say this is what you need and defend it in front of the voters? You're going to use this much money to do this or that. I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't have 3 or 4 months of mortgage ahead ready to pay the mortgage. I don't have it.
Let me ask you this question. Is $151,257 enough money to be in a fund balance at the end of the year?
How much?
$157,257.
And how did you get that number?
I subtracted $60,000 from the 211. Same as you do at the top. You take it out of the tax.
Before you do that,
no.
before you do that, you have to remember this. Out of the audited fund balance that's shown here, but $211,000, there's something like $40,000 that's already been used on a prepayment coming with a grader that we're gonna take delivery
That's
of.
out of a different reserve account.
That's the year end. That's the year-end fund balance. I remember the motion that came on the floor when Brandon asked us how we wanted to pay for the new grader.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he said there was about 93 or just short of $100,000, and everybody agreed to take half of that and to use that to prepay the grader that we're about ready to take.
Okay,
So
so
the
that's-
fund balance is not 211. You've got to take away 40 or 45,000 automatically away from that.
Okay, minus the six, and that would leave you with 111,257. Still.
I'm getting you. I'm understanding. What I'm trying to get to is the whole package. You use about the same money that you had last year. Don't ask for any more reserves. You don't need to, because you just funded them out of the fund balances that you just had. So the money didn't disappear, Ray. It's there. It's going to be funded into the accounts that you're going to get to use. And then the tax rate remains flat because it doesn't start going up and down, which I get. You don't want to come back. I heard that already, where you don't want it, but I'm going to have the same philosophy over the general fund too. So you're really trying to be stable and then use the fund balances for the reserves, or as we'll get a little bit deeper, and I'm glad that John brought it up, is there anything, for instance, at the highway garage that we should be thinking about? They haven't had any money in years that I recall at the garage itself, not a wheel. I don't know if it needs a roof. I don't know if it needs windows.
Yeah. It needs repair on the membrane on the roof in the maintenance bay.
I don't know if we.
I got an estimate 2 years ago. It was almost 23,000.
I don't know if it. I remember we got caught one year and we had to put new furnaces in, and we had to figure out how we're going to spend that in the middle of the year, and just did it. So.
Right. And that's something that the fund balance would take care of if you had a fund balance.
Yep.
The 2 reserves we have are ones for wheeled vehicles that can only be spent obviously on wheeled vehicles.
Yep.
And the other one can only be spent to fix a road. So I need culverts or material or pavement. I can use it for that. I can't use it for fuel. I can't use it for tires or blades or anything like that.
Okay.
We don't have
Enough.
the reserve.
It's called capital projects.
Except for the fund balance, if we have another issue next year with reserves tanking, that fund balance is what we can tap into instead of borrowing money.
Well, John just answered the question. The one of the fund balances is capital, and that would be a building, so it would be the roof. I just threw that out there. I just threw that.
I looked at it with Steve, and he said the way it's written is there's a wheeled one and there's a capital, which is capital infrastructure. It's not a building. It's not a town highway garage or a roof or a salt shed. It's just for roads.
Okay, I'd have to see that.
Me too.
Because infrastructure is building or any other thing. It's not wheels.
It's gonna park the trucks
It's
outside.
highway infrastructure is the way it's written.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then we could target, you know, a certain amount of that balance to say that we're gonna actually address some of the building needs through that process. I don't have a problem with that. I asked the same question to Brandon this morning, or not, because it wasn't this morning, it was last week, about Martin Hall, here. Is it, so think out of the box. Is there anything here that may come up that we would not have to ask for new tax money for?
You gotta get your parking lot fixed out there, the catch basin's caving in the parking lot,
Yep.
and that's not a lot of money, but it needs to be done.
Yep.
The good news on these 3 sheets of paper is that the tax rate would be exactly the same as this year. Barring, and possibly a little bit lower.
Let's hope the school tax ain't the same as it
Well,
was.
no, I know, you're right.
If I heard Dave right, he said something about not putting $33,000 or asking for $33,000 more this year, so it would go down, if that was the case.
Well, I would fund it the same. In fact, I'd probably fund it double or triple and not have that much money rolling around. I'm okay with having a little money rolling around, but I'm right on board with Joey or Mike or whoever has said,
So you had said you were possibly not gonna ask for another $33,000 from the taxpayers.
Yes.
Which is in our budget this year.
yes.
That's in our budget right now.
Yes.
So if we take that out, we're gonna be lowering my budget with $33,000. So it would drop a little bit.
Well, not necessarily. The annual operating budget's the same, because I asked 3 times whether it was a standalone article, and it is.
See,
The way they have it written, it's not. It says includes 33K proposed reserve. I mean, that tells me that it is buried in the budget, the way they have it written.
Is that true, Brandon?
Yes.
So if it gets voted down, then taxes would decrease.
No, we're not voting anything down.
No.
Is the $33,000 being asked for by the wheel appropriation located in the budget, or is it a standalone article?
It's a standalone article, but it is included in the highway tax need. Wait, hold on.
So how can that be?
First page, separate article.
Excuse me. That's wrong. You're right, it's a separate article.
Okay. Mike, sorry, Paul.
Plus, it's also gonna be hard if you're a taxpayer, if they know that there's money in reserve, or there's money in there, and you're asking for more money, they're like, well, why do you need, you know what I mean? That's gonna be a hard sell too. I mean, we might sit here and understand, but, you know, we do the same thing.
Can we get clarification? Let's wind this up and we'll move on to another article, because it looks like we've got, it's pretty well ironed out. I don't think we're arguing about a lot of things here. I think we're gonna try to find out what to do with this surplus. I think that's a general thought. We're certainly not asking for more money than we did a year ago, but can you definitely find out about whether this $211,000 surplus, or whether the loan that was taken for the paving drew out of that, and you'll have to look back in the minutes, or whether it was out of the general fund reserve accounts? Can you do that, whoever's online, to help us to move forward?
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes.
So that matters a lot, because if it got taken out of highway annual operating, all this talk that we just had about putting some money in reserve goes down the drain. Okay? Everybody okay with moving on?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go to, thank you, Ray. Let's go to,
Thank you, guys.
yep,
Thanks.
Thanks, Ray.
let's go to town clerk, budget. Brandon, can you take it away? Are you okay? You're feeling all right?
Yes, I'm all set.
Okay.
So,
Paul, go ahead.
this is the town clerk's budget, correct?
Yes, it is.
Is Floanne on?
No, she's not.
So before we start on this one, can you as an overview, whoever was in the departments, including Ray, I'm thinking, I'm sure I don't know if he's still there or not, but they would come to you with a proposal. Is that what happened? How this was formulated? And then you just printed it. But did you have any input on this, Brandon, or did you let them walk your way at least through what they wanted?
So Floanne and I met twice, and then she also met with Rosalie, and and we reviewed these numbers, and everything looked good for the town clerk's office. So what you'll see under the town clerk is you'll see one column proposed by the department, and then you'll see the second column proposed by the town manager. That's different across other departments. Two departments, including land use and listers, and the planning commission should also have input on their budget for FY22. So you'll see budget department, and then first pass, planning commission might want to take a look at this budget too. Then you'll go to select board.
They're the same.
What's that, John?
They're the same. Is there any difference? It looks like the exact same numbers, Brandon. Town manager
On
versus,
town clerk,
yeah.
that's because he's proposed the same as the office. He didn't change anything on them.
Okay.
And
So in other words, I agreed with the town clerk that these numbers,
Okay,
these
okay.
numbers for revenue and expenses, there weren't any disagreements.
Is there any questions about the town clerk? I mean, if you look at the very first on a screen, I mean, it is asking for a
6% wage,
what?
6% wage increase.
Yes, so for these three departments, have either an increase in compensation or hours or
one at a time.
benefit. So I did a compensation study, and you should have a copy of that.
But we want to go one at a time. Let's stick with town clerk, please, okay?
So for the town clerk, you look at the average, compensation report. So the LCP compensation and benefits report provided compensation data for town clerks from 59 cities and towns in the state of Vermont. I looked at 4 different variables: annual salary, job type, hourly rate, and pay period. So the annual salary, the average salary for town clerks in Vermont in relation to the data analyzed is $41,273. So that seems pretty close to where we are, which we're at $42,717. I looked at job type. 36 out of the 59 have full-time clerks. 23 cities and towns have part-time clerks. And we looked at hourly rate. The average hourly rate for town clerks in Vermont is $25.43 an hour. The Weathersfield town clerk places 15 out of 59 on the scale. The hourly rate for this position in Weathersfield is $27.38 per hour. Pay period, 58 out of the 59 cities and towns pay town clerks weekly, whereas one pays their town clerks quarterly. I believe in this case, we can justify the increase for the town clerk.
Any comments, questions from the board?
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Paul.
Brandon, you just said you're okay with an increase. What are we increasing? Right now, the average is 41,273. We're paying 42,717. What's the increase to then?
It's 45,494. But we also have to look at that data.
Yep, job type, hourly rate, and pay period.
Yes, and if you notice the line, did I not include it in here? So there's also data that accompanies this. I'm sorry, I didn't include this in this set, but it's years of service.
Yep.
So we might also want to narrow the data down by total number of years of service and take a deeper dive into that.
Is Floanne at 40 hours a week?
Flowing is 30 hours a week.
But your thing's saying 40 here.
Yes, I was basing it off 40, but then Floanne corrected me and she said that she works 30 hours. It was a typo.
So then the dollar amount would change then accordingly, or no? Did it screw up the scale?
It's the same. The pay rate would change to $30 an hour, similar to the town treasurer.
So, but that's kind of a big deal. That's like a pretty big deal. I don't know about the rest of the board, but it's, it's 8, 30, 20, and 9. I'm not into a 6% raise in pay. I really would like to see, given the circumstances, that it would be, in fact, Brandon asked me about it a long time ago when we were starting these, and he wasn't gonna put in anything for himself, and he wasn't gonna put anything in for a couple of other people, and I said, I would really like to see it to be even across the board, that way that it doesn't start the, what about me situations. I think that we've come a long way in the last 5 or even 10 years in trying to upgrade pay throughout the town, and I want to be even. That's my position.
Mike, you got your calculator out?
Yep.
Divide the proposed salary 45,494 by 1,560 hours.
Divided by 1,400,
1560.
1,560.
2916.
How much?
2916.
There you go. That's what we're paying her with this salary, not 25. Put her on hourly and pay her 25. Sorry, but
Yeah, but that would be a big reduction.
or recognize.
well, the complaint is that our hourly rate isn't high enough. Well, if we go to 29, it's go down the list. We're way the heck up there. Then we're almost to the bottom.
Yeah.
Yep. I know it, well, that's why when I saw the 40, I didn't know how many people in the office were working 40, and I just said, no, that's a misprint, and it's really 30.
If we're gonna do 45,494, it should be a 40-hour job. If it's 30, then
Or it's with the assistant,
right.
right, to be 10 hours or something, right?
The assistant's in for 20.
Oh, okay.
The question I have is the annual salary, 42,717, is that based on 30 hours?
Yes, it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, Brandon?
And what, okay, and so in relationship to Vermont, the 41,273, is that based on 30 hours or is that based on 40?
Oh, I see lots of different ones here.
Because if that's based on 40, we're way over.
Yeah, so we can narrow this data down and only compare Weathersfield to 30 hours or 40 hours and see what the average salary would be for that group in that data pool. So any other data you'd like to see for the next meeting for a second pass, just let me know and I'll sort it and narrow it down.
Paul?
There's insurance too?
No, opt out.
She's opt out. Right.
But what I meant is it could be there.
Yes.
So you get insurance, you can get $30 an hour. Where do I sign up?
29. It's an elected position.
I know that. That's what I'm getting at. Is it up this
Wait a
year?
minute. You're gonna file the paperwork?
Oh, we have to work 30 hours.
But I think it's like a 3-year term, isn't it? I don't know when it's up. I don't know when it's up.
She's
Yeah,
up.
I
This
see
year?
your
She's
point.
filed papers.
There you have it, Paul.
Better
This
not
year.
you, so.
This year, Paul. This year.
I've been working for 30 years where I am. I'm like, holy Toledo. And the insurance package here, we just voted in, it's better than the one I have.
Mike,
So.
you just saw it all. Mike Todd.
My opinion is that COVID-19, 2020 hit everybody hard. There's a lot of people in this town that are on fixed incomes that aren't seeing anything anywhere near even the 2% raise. That how a 2% raise works out on an hourly or salary individual. It's not the same as the 1.4 that they give you in Social Security.
1.3.
1.3. The 2% across, I agree with you, Dave, 2% across the board. It's just not a year where we should be, and when I look at these numbers over here, and I see what's on here for the compensation comparison, I look at it and say, why? What's wrong? I don't see, it's not like it's underpaid from what I see. And a 2% raise is still almost $900 over last year.
Yes. Any other questions about the town clerk? So we've had this first run through. What is the general feeling about this for direction to have paperwork done for the next meeting? Is everybody thinking, or what is everybody thinking? I just heard you, Joey,
I'd like to stay where we're at.
at 0.
0.
John?
Any future numbers that are given that are based on salary, I want it reflected the hours that they're working and how that's calculated. So we got other employees that are on salary that are working one hell of a lot more than 40. And so some people appear to be doing okay on salary and others are really not doing quite so well.
Good point.
Do you have any thought, Paul? I want to keep mushing here.
I want to be consistent across the board. I like that better than one person gets sick, somebody else gets this. I think we need to look at the pay structure that we have in this place too. I mean, that's a whole different thing altogether, but right now,
There have been studies, though, I got to warn you, there have been people that have done this over and over.
More than once.
A lot.
what I'm getting at, trust me, I would not recommend having a company come in that Claremont did that already.
No, we did it.
No, what I'm getting at is what we're doing right here is good, and if Brandon adds a couple more things about, was it 30, was it 40, we're gonna have a good idea where we are with the state, and we can do that ourselves.
Well, VLCT is the resource.
Right.
I mean, it's all the towns that report
Right.
into the state. You got a lot of them, 100, 118, 120, whatever they're at.
Right. I just want to be consistent. I
I
don't.
have a
Yes.
question for Joey. You're 0, are you talking 0% tax increase, or are you talking about 0% raises across the board?
I think it was a tough year, and unfortunately, I would say 0% raise across the board, unless we're going to do 2% for everybody. But I don't agree with one person getting 6 and somebody else maybe getting 0. So I'm going to say 0 at this moment.
Thank you.
Can we move on to, are we okay with talking about the town clerk thing right now? So we need to get, like, whatever the pay is based on 30 hours, a right amount. I mean, somebody else did the division right here, and it seems to be up to 29.16 or whatever it was, the number I heard already, because it's 30 hours, and the amount of salary is set, right? It is finite, it's in here.
I personally need to see any other numbers to say I'm at 2% max, I'm not going any higher.
But that's gonna change the budget. That's gonna change the budget that's proposed.
Who sets the hours?
She does.
So we set the money.
We set
and
the
then
money.
They say the hours. So
If Luann can get the work done in 10 hours, she gets $42,000. If she has to work 60, she gets 42.
okay.
She sets her hours, we dictate the money.
You gonna change that when you get up there?
Sure.
So Brandon, for the next meeting, and I mean, it may be next week or whatever, this is gonna lower a little bit, because it seems like around the table, it's at 2. It's not gonna be at 6. Okay? Hello?
Do you look?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make those changes and they'll be reflected in the budget document for the next meeting.
Okay, good. Let's go on to, what was the next one on the agenda? Let's go to listers. We got a couple more to get through here. It's 8:45. Okay, you want to take us through this one, Brandon, or how do you want to do it?
Yes. So, I also compensation study in the listener's office, but I'm going to with the budget itself.
What happened?
So the listers contacted me prior to the meeting, and some of the numbers have changed. So
Well, we've only got the information that's in front of us. Can we work off that? We gotta have something, and this was the proposal.
yes, so the lister's office is proposing, let's say, 24,000. I need to revisit the numbers. I didn't have an opportunity to change these numbers before the original budget that I was proposing. But 9,000, I think, well, it'll be about $8,000. It'll be $8,000 less for benefits, approximately, and the listers are also stating that the $6,000 town parcel mapping line should be divided between the general fund, the land use budget, and the lister's budget. So there'll be a couple of changes here. The main difference of this budget is, in the past, all three listers were under one line. However, the listers, there's three listers, and they work different hours, and they make different salaries. So we broke them out in this budget to show lister 1, lister 2, and lister 3. So I think by removing the $8,000 for benefits and another $4,000 coming off for town parcel mapping, that's about $12,000. So they're proposing a $12,000 increase in tax revenue to operate the lister's office in FY22.
I have kind of a fundamental question, okay? We were told that a meeting ago, that the listers reorganized. They met and they wanted to distribute their hours differently than what has been done in the past. My question is this: how will the voters, including me, know which lister we're voting on that is associated with the salary that is now being talked about? Because that affects my decision or not decision of who is getting paid like a really lot more money than one of the other ones. So you could create a definite competition about somebody who may or may not want a job, when I just heard that somebody else might want to run for town clerk or something. But the voters will never know what term is up, because the last information I had was that it's a 3-year term, and so it's not up every year. But this really does not distribute the hours anywhere near evenly, and I don't know how the voters can determine who they're voting for and what term would be up associated with the dollar amount to that employment. Paul? Well, I want that, I want that out as a matter of the record. That's a question, that how will the voters know who they're voting on associated with that dollar amount in the future or now or any other time? Go ahead, Paul.
So I was just looking, you've got on the notes on the side, you got listers 1, 2, and 3, and you've got the hours, 10, 32, and 4. Looks like the 32-hour one says moves into benefit eligibility, so they're upping their hours. Is that correct?
Yes, but it's not full benefits.
But they're deciding to up their hours.
Correct. They've decided amongst themselves to change their hours.
All right. So we have one lister that works 4 hours a week. Are they in this building at all? Do they work? Do they work in this building?
I've only met Lister 3 twice.
And I never have in the 2.5 years I've been in here. So do we have a job description for each one? Do they all do exactly the same thing? Because in order for somebody to be working 32 hours and doing something, and somebody only 4, I'm curious of what they're doing. What are the job descriptions for each one? Are they all the same?
Yeah, so that's something I can definitely meet with the listers on and ask them what the respective job descriptions are for the 3 listers. I would assume they're different because
I would hope so.
the hours are
No job descriptions. There are no job descriptions for any elected positions.
So maybe we should be looking up when the town voted to put in listers, and I mean, the town has only had the town has been chartered, the town has only had a town manager form of government since 1974. Before that, they were run by the Board of Selectmen. There's gotta be some kind of, I don't know if it's a definition in the state of Vermont, what the authority or whatever of the listers, there's gotta be something, there's gotta be some definition. I'm questioning, how as a voter, including me, how are we gonna know that we're voting on somebody that is, they met as a group, and apparently they had the right to meet as a group of 3. So, as has been done in the past within organizations in the town, you could get somebody to run, 2 other people to run for lister, and apparently it's turned political because you have a meeting within the 3, and then you say, well, I want to have more hours. And the tables could be turned so that it would be a split vote, for instance, a 2-to-1 as the group of 3 listers, and say, well, I think it ought to be 33, 33, and 33, not, and I'm talking about distribution of the job itself.
Yeah.
Not whatever it is right now, like 80, 10, and 1%.
Well, it's 46 hours a week here.
No, I'm talking about the distribution
Yeah,
between the
each
3
person,
jobs.
How many percentage, right?
A distribution between the 3 jobs.
Yeah.
So you've got, but really, all you can do is it's a question of math. You've got 32, which is hours a week, which is 8 times more than Lister 3, which is 4 hours a week. Just do the math.
Right. But when you vote on town meeting.
You vote for a lister
And you vote for a lister.
for 3 years.
Right, so I'm voting somebody in for just 4 hours a week? That doesn't say that on the ballots,
Doesn't say that on the ballot.
and that's not right.
Joey?
Well, that's kind of where I was going with it. It's like, if, say we vote in a new lister, which one are we voting in? Is it gonna change based on who it is or versus what position they have, number 1, 2, or 3?
Here's what happens in politics. It happens on every board. It happens on this board, it happens on the school board, it happens on any board that's elected. When you're the lone person out there and you have an idea and you're with 4 other people, or, if you're a 5-person board, and then you are the one, because I've been there, that's in the opposition, then you go get a friend to run the next year. That's the reality of politics. Happens at every level. And so what would happen under your theory is you could run for a lister, and let's say that it's a job that you're interested in, and you happen to have an annual meeting now to determine the hours and the structure within yourselves, and you didn't get your way, you run and get another friend to be a friend of you the next year. Then it's 2-to-1.
Right.
That's the political fallout of what's happened.
Well, myself personally, I just want to look, I know it's political, I don't want to get into that. I just want to look at, no different than my job position. If you've got technician 1 through 3, and you got an engineer 1 through 3, all right, is this a lister level? Is one trained more than the other, so that's why they're working more? Is the other one in training, that's why it's only 4 hours? Is it?
But where is the voting coming in
Well,
to associate with that?
And that's what I'm getting at. I want to understand, and then we control the money. Like, we'll put that through as a budget and say, here's what goes forward, correct?
Yes.
So, by them increasing an hour and not communicating anything, they're just proposing and saying.
Well, in defense of them, we haven't heard anything yet, so I
That's
don't,
what
I
I'm
don't want,
getting at,
I don't
right.
want to, I don't want to get that, they're gonna have to defend why they're asking their hours,
Well, that's
and they
what-
may have reasons, I don't know.
Well, that's what I wanna hear. I'd like to see that document here.
Joey?
Yeah, well, connected to this, also, we've got, it says a 96% increase in insurance benefits, obviously, because one's gonna be full-time.
Well, we just heard that that's not the case, though. Brandon
Yeah,
just
you
corrected
said that
us a
was
little
you're
bit.
gonna take like 8,000 out of that.
Well, we also have a 40, almost 43% increase in office supplies, I'm sure, because somebody's gonna be there more often.
Yeah,
So it's not just the pay thing we're looking at, it affects the whole entire budget.
in our packet, here's what you also need to kind of pay attention to. On our packet, on the Board of Listers throughout the state, there's something like 118 towns, okay? There's a lot of them.
144.
Okay, 144 towns, that's a lot of towns. And we're in,
I don't know how they collated this.
yeah, I don't know how they did it either, but if you look
It's
at,
a lot more than,
if you look here at the summary, it's extremely high. Now, we may have more permits, we may have more things that I just don't know about, or reasons why it's that high. I don't know about that. I don't know. So I think we're in second place as far as all of these towns with expense, according to all the towns in Vermont. Yes, Mike?
According to the annual salary of the listers in the state of Vermont, in relation to the data analyzed, $6,768.92 times 3 is $20,306.76. We're twice that. With 3 listers.
Now, without the proposal.
That's correct.
Without the proposal.
That's correct, without the proposal. I have a couple questions. Number one, and some of its points. When you pay somebody wages and provide them with workman's compensation and their tax payment, everything that comes under being an employee, you are an employee by the standards of the state and the federal government. Why do we not have any authority over these individuals working in our town office? Many places within, for instance, zoning, you'll have minimum standards that are set in law. And it says right in there, you can go bigger. You can be more restrictive with zoning laws, for instance. But you can't be less than in some ways. Why would this be any different? Is there not precedence?
John, go ahead.
you do have a choice, and that's to ask the voters to do away with the lister's position. I can tell you for a fact, Cavendish has no listers. They voted them out a number of years ago. They hire Nimerick to come in. Nimerick does their listing for them. I don't know how they do it. I don't know all the details. She said they're in 3 times a year. That's it.
What's it cost?
I don't know the number. They do have a number plugged in here that is deceptive for Cavendish. But the fact that ours is so high, I mean, look at Ludlow. It's 13,000 less than ours, and their grand list has got to be double what ours is. Easy. I mean, that's the number, is what's your grand list? Because that's what drives the lister's office.
Or the business of it, right?
Yeah, or the business of it.
So the
new
transfers.
stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Permits, yes.
This list is useful, but I think we're not seeing the whole picture, because I think a lot of these real low numbers are probably token listers, and they hire somebody else to actually do the physical work.
Like Springfield.
Yeah.
There's like 3 listers at $500, and I'm sure that they are a wealth of information because they know properties from like Dick Moore used to be a lister.
Or they come in once a year and sign stuff. We
Well,
get paid $500, so.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about history and so it's really helpful to somebody else who's
Agreed.
trying to make those decisions, but they're paid no money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So there's another entity that's exactly right. There's another entity that's doing the legwork.
A question in regards to, they're setting up, I got a low battery.
Me too.
9 o'clock, motion to extend for,
So moved.
Second.
well, I didn't say for how many
How
minutes.
many?
30.
15,
30.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I can do that because Chauncey's not taking it.
Thank you.
So in regards to the hours being set at such a disparity across the three listers, I would think at least the town could say, okay, you want to set your own hours, fine, but they're going to be within like a 10% range or 15% range or something like that. Where it's not going to be what you said before, one gets 80 and the other two split what's left over.
Well, there's a benefit to that too, where you have shared information, so there's a check and balance. So if somebody happens to get sick, you don't fall off the rails. I'm sure that's what, when they hire a service like Nimerick, it's in the books where you could have people, but the system is in place. Where the,
I guess, I don't know, like I said, I don't know the details.
Well, I just use that for example, but you could do that for the books too, where the system's in place, and if you have people, sometimes people have issues, whether or not they can work, or whether they get sick, or so forth.
The 10 or 15% would cover that.
Yes.
They could kind of work it themselves.
Paul?
So, quick question about the working and the hours and things that we were talking about. From these elected officials, it seems like it just sounds like they can generate their own hours and say their hours when they're here. Does that sound like what is happening?
I don't know the answer to that.
Because what I'm curious about is how do we and this is going to sound like a major control thing, but I mean I have a work badge here, it's an RFID thing that's here, and when I do something in a project or do whatever, I got to write down where my time's going to what project. Now granted, these guys are all working here for this, but when you go out to a site to look at something, and this includes the land use administrator also, how do you justify the time that you're out there? In other words, is our time cards here? Do we have time cards? Do they write down, I went to Joe Smith's house and I was there for an hour. I sat at home and did a training seminar for 2 hours. I know if anybody here that works for the town wants to work on a holiday or work at home or do something, they've got to go through a thing. These guys, do they have to tell anybody when they don't show up or they're not here? Like, I'm really curious about
I guess that's a question for administration. Either Suzanne or Brandon can answer that. There is a time clock, and I would suspect that there is a schedule about going out, and there's mileage, because we've signed for mileage before to
Yeah.
go check on things. There's got to be a coordination to the land use office.
I first and foremost want to say this isn't because I'm saying anybody's doing anything wrong. I'm learning how this is all. A lot of this is new. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that this was not, maybe looked at this way, or this is how this is done. Like, this is what I'm curious about.
Well,
Because we want tracking, and that because if the listers truly want to increase their time and increase salary and increase money, like if at my work you go to the management with a proposal and say, not just a budget, but you say, listen, I need another person because this is not getting done, this is what you've got planned for the next 5 years, this is what we need to do. Here's the hours that we're working. You got to have that stuff. Like right now, I don't have any data in front of me to say why you would need this.
hey, Brandon, do you have a hour? And I'm sure it may be, or maybe this is something to find for the next meeting. The number of hours that were potentially either in the town clerk or the listers or land use, it's ultimately the same question. For the last 5 years or 7 years or 8 years, has there been an increase, or has there been an ask in the hours, or is it primarily stuck at 40 or 44 hours? That's kind of.
Based on the budget report in your packet, numbers been pretty stable. Let me take a look.
Okay. John.
Brandon, at the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned that the benefits, if we approved it, would be some kind of prorated.
He's looking for something. He's looking something.
Yeah, he was looking something about the hourly.
Okay.
At least for.
Well, where I'm going with that is, first, I'm going on record as saying I don't want to bump anybody into a benefit package right now.
Thank you.
Second thing, let's say we did do it, we better, we've broken the line in the sand which was at 30. Somebody's gonna work 32 and get a portion. You better go on the other side of that line and start working your way down, because the people that'll work 15 are gonna want the same thing.
Prorated.
And I don't have any big problem with that.
Well,
But it's a moving target.
It is.
That's
And
a
it's a
problem.
complete change from what we've done for years and years. I've never really liked the idea that if you work 29, you don't, 31, you do. That never seemed fair.
Yeah,
all it does, John, is create havoc. It's the same with borrowing money that I spoke earlier. So wheels disappear.
He's not gonna get over that.
No, I'm not, because, but the targets become moving. New boards show up, new administration, and then somebody says, yeah, but it was done this way before I got here, so it's gonna continue.
Yep.
So you dig a hole and you're headed down. It's easier not to dig the hole, Paul.
yeah, and all I'm saying, one of the things I just want some data from any department. Even if Ray said he needed a new person, he's gonna have to sit here and tell us why and what's not getting done.
Yep.
So I would expect that from any department. I want to say, I'm not trying to pick on one.
Yeah, but
I
I'm not
just-
sure that this is, but the change in this one, this particular one, and if Brandon looks it up and he finds out that it's still been stuck at 40 or 44 hours, this is a division within the three.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
it's a demotion significantly for one, and then a rising significantly of one.
Well,
So that all the information, all the work is being abandoned by one,
Well-
and then put in by
Am I
one.
not wrong?
So,
One-
and that may be okay, but the voters sure don't know what
No,
that
the
means.
voters don't. One's retiring from what I've understood, or semi-retiring or something, that's why these hours, is that why these
And
hours?
that's not the one at 4 hours.
No. So,
I don't know the answer. I'm just saying I'm a voter and I'd
Well,
like to
this is
know,
what we
and
need to talk-
if opportunity
talk
exists,
about
like
this.
you said, hey, wait a minute, now I'm being paid whatever it is, $18 an hour, and I'm retired, because that's historically what people do. They look for inside work instead of outside. It's a pretty good job.
I mean,
I'd like to know what that cost is for NIMRIC in that other town.
Yeah.
Joey?
Even if it's 100, I did the math quickly, even if it's $150 an hour, it's cheaper than this.
Go ahead, Joey.
Nimerick's not cheap.
Would this person, lister number 2, be eligible for an insurance opt-out should they choose not to take it if we're gonna offer them money? Because that's gonna add further, like, to the salary. So now you're gonna have somebody working 32 hours and potentially getting, well, that's 3/4 of a week, so call it 7,500 instead of 10,000 extra on top.
Prorated.
Well, that's 75% of what we offer.
That's the
so-
danger.
Yeah, so you're talking a almost, $38,000 a year, $37,000 a year job for one person and $3,000 a year for another at that point.
yeah, I'm okay right now, no.
You're okay right now?
I'm not accepting it,
Oh, you're not accepting this as,
no, not until.
but there is gonna be a different one, right, Brandon? You're still there,
I
right?
need data in front of me.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so there's gonna be something different than this proposal that we got tonight.
Yes, what is the guidance from the board? I'm gonna make the changes that I discussed with the listers today, which is to remove the medical benefits, and then also split up the $6,000 town parcel mapping amongst 2 other budgets to decrease that line to $2,000. Is there any other guidance from the board?
Yeah,
Any other-
I don't see any resolution to the amount of money that we're spending now. That's what I'm hearing. I've heard it all the way around the table from every single person. So it's not really,
We want to look at doing it different.
it's not really, go ahead.
I think we're too close, even if we have town meeting in May, to put an article before the voters to do away with the listers. But I think it's something this board ought to seriously explore. Not necessarily this group of people, but the future group of people. Whether it be 1 year, 2 years down the road, you're gonna either have people that nobody wants to run. It's not a job that you come in off the street and sit down and know exactly what to do. And there's another position in town that could be problematic in the not too distant future too, and that's the treasurer. Any of these elected positions, anybody can run for and may not have a clue what they're doing.
And have no control from the town manager.
Yeah, or nobody runs. Then what do you do?
Well, if you make it, I'll tell you what though, we've said that for the years with the highway too, but if you make it financially okay, they will come.
To a certain extent.
Brandon has had this just happen. I mean, if he reorganizes a couple of positions in the office, they came. I mean, I don't know if I'm buying that anymore about, you know, you won't have people that are qualified or whatever to
Well, there's definitely a learning curve to that job,
Yeah,
as
but-
with any job.
See two that look
There's
great.
plenty of opportunity for training.
I'm not buying that we can't do this year either, because if NIMRIC is available to fill in at, like you said, $150 an hour, it's still cheaper.
Maybe. I don't know the details, but
And we don't know what the outcome of the vote would be either, as we put it before the people. I don't see why we couldn't put that
it'd be
before
up to
the
this
people
board to
this year.
sell it.
What's that?
It would be up to this board to sell it. This is the reason.
That's correct.
And right now, it's gonna be an uphill battle.
You think so, really?
I need to see the justification about how, in a total expense, setting aside a moment for the division of how we are
Excuse me.
in the cover sheet, how we are in the top 2 in spending out of 144 towns.
And they want.
As a matter of supplies, as a matter of whatever it costs to run that particular office. But I think that question would come and bother me if that happened in highway or any other section of the town. Anyone, or police or whatever, I would have the same question. How are we doing something that's, and maybe it is, although they came in and scolded us for not jumping on board with a reappraisal. But if their work has been keeping us in line without having a reappraisal, then that's beneficial.
Yeah.
That is beneficial. So, but we didn't hear that a few meetings ago. We heard that we needed one. So I want to be complimentary, because
Yeah.
if that work is holding us off and keeping us within the CLA, well, then that's a benefit for the town.
That's a good point.
It is. One more point, and that comes back to what Joey was talking about in regards to the benefits. I'd like to not see the hours stay at 32 on list of 32, even if they're not going to take benefits, or if it's a prorated benefits. It's in that crossover where, like Joey said, benefits become either you either get them or you can opt out, or I'd rather see it much more. I don't agree with what they're doing.
Go ahead, Paul.
What's the hours now? That's what they want to go to.
44, isn't it, when you add them all up?
No, I'm sorry.
Maybe it's not quite that much.
Lister 1, how many hours do they spend a week now?
Right now.
Oh, I don't know the answer. Brandon, do you have that answer?
In Lister 2 and 3?
Brandon, do you have the hours now, not the proposed, but now?
Just reduced in July to 13 hours, was at 24 hours, reduced to 13, and Lister 2 has always been at 8, and Lister 3 just upped from 13 hours to 28 hours.
Can you run that by us again, please, because we want to write it
Well,
down?
I think she might have the wrong listers, because
Yeah,
Can you run that by us again, Suzanne?
Lister 1 reduced from 24 hours to 13 hours at the moment.
Okay, number 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lister 2 was always 8 hours.
that one's the one that's in
I
question.
have worked those 8 hours. These hours, they are annually.
Okay,
She has worked those hours. And Lister 3 just upped the hours from 13 to 28.
Okay, so for the purpose of the budget document, I believe Suzanne's referencing Lister 3 as Lister 2 as represented on the budget document.
You can see that.
okay. But that's a significant change around. So Lister number 3 on your thing is going to have a 100% reduction, going from 8 to 4, right? Is that true?
Correct.
So Suzanne, that is correct.
That is correct, but these hours were actually not worked. I mean, these hours weren't used. She has worked 8 hours per year.
Who does?
8 hours per year? Or week?
Yes,
8 hours per year?
yes, on an average for the last 3 years.
So not per week?
That is correct. And she hasn't been in several months.
Doesn't it cost us more to do the paperwork on that?
Well, I don't know, that's kind of I don't know, there's an interest problem then, if somebody's gonna work 8 hours a week, I don't know, see, that's why these terms, when you elect officials, I mean, I don't, but if you're gonna get cornered out on a vote of a job, that doesn't seem fair to me. The job is what it is, it ought to be a description by the town and says, here you go, just like this board.
Yeah.
You run for a board, you get $500. That's what happens.
there's
You're
nothing
elected,
to tell-
we're an elected official,
You
so
guys are getting
There's
paid?
nothing for this board,
you guys are getting paid.
but there's nothing for this board to tell you, I don't have to show up, I'm elected, so I'm not gonna show up, or I'm only gonna show up every other meeting.
Or I don't have to listen to the town.
Yeah, but that's a little different than being an employee. I mean,
Well, they're not employed, we have no control over them.
yeah, but these are employees and elected officials. We're not.
There needs to be some definitions.
Yeah, this is
in there.
a
Yeah,
weird gray
This
area.
whole
I don't
thing's a
know.
dumpster fire.
I don't know. This just seems to be turned upside down on its head.
It
When I
sure
just
is.
when I just heard these hours about what's going on now and then what the proposal is. Can we move on to land use? Any more questions about this? I know it's got to be revisited. I know apparently even tonight's proposal
It's
it's
not.
got to be retyped or for us to look at.
Yeah, well,
And we do have all of this. I urge everybody to keep onto this, which is the document that shares each one of the informations for us. Yes.
Please make sure Brandon is, Brandon, that I am requesting that information on NIMRIC.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
yeah. And
And we have this, we have another, we have a multiple thing about compensation comparisons, okay? We have a yellow print too, so everybody can look at it all.
So does the board agree as a whole for our administration to provide a report of how much NEMRIC services would cost?
yes,
Yes.
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 Got it?
Yes.
Okay. Can we move to land use, please?
Yes, so the land use office is proposing an $8,865 increase in tax revenue and anticipates a $156 increase in zoning permit income. As demonstrated on pages 13 to 14, personnel expenses for this department increased by $10,000 to move the land use administrator from 25 hours per week to 33 and a half. This increase in hours was voted unanimous in favor by the Weathersfield Planning Commission. Due to the land use administrator's previous role in the U.S. military, no benefits need to be budgeted for this increase in hours. Other variances include a $100 increase in office expenses and a $100 increase in commission and dues. This office decreased legal expenses by $2,000 due to the land use administrator's legal education and license to practice law in this box. We believe that line will decrease because he can answer a lot of the questions on his own. I similarly did a compensation study in the land use office. Salary for land use administrators in Vermont in relation to the data analyzed is $22,766. Weathersfield places 36 out of 54 on this scale. 9 out of 54 cities and towns in Vermont have full-time land use administrators, whereas 45 cities and towns have part-time land use administrators. The average hourly rate for land use administrators in Vermont is $20.76. The Weathersfield land use administrator places 27 out of 54 on this scale. 36 out of 54 cities and towns pay land use administrators weekly, whereas 7 pay monthly and 8 pay annually.
So,
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. So the land use maps on this budget will increase, correct?
Land use maps.
Yeah, because you took it out of the
Office
other-
expenses, you're gonna split that up, and I don't personally have a problem with that. I see why, and it makes sense to kind of spread that out, just so it's not one department. But just so you know that land use maps will go up, or is that the right price right here?
Yeah, so it's proposed at $100 for land use maps.
But you said you were gonna move town parcel mapping 50% from listers into.
Right, is that line, or is it a different line?
Oh, I'll have to add a line in this budget.
okay.
Yeah, to put that $2,000 in there.
I also, what's that?
20 after. It's 20 after.
I also quickly wanted to say, you touched on a couple of the things with the land use administrator, legal experience, so on and so forth, but I did want to say, from a planning commission standpoint, we did approve, at our end, which is nothing, the select board has to approve it here, but we looked at the work that was being done and what we wanted. But on that same note, I'm gonna ask for the same thing here, which I do not see, is what's getting done, what's not getting done, and why we wanna increase that. And I did ask for that in our planning commission meeting, to come here, and if it's something that we need to help with on the planning commission, fine, but I don't feel it's right for the board here to sit and not see that information either. Some of the stuff you did put in there, but not why we'd want that to increase, and what's not getting done, and what we have potential to get done. Just as an FYI for the rest of the board.
Can you tell me, Brandon, again, because I didn't write it down, but I want to write it down. What is the hours now worked, and what is the proposal?
So the hours worked now at 25 hours per week. However, he went over those hours several times over the summer, so I had to decrease him down to 22 hours for now for the remaining of FY21. So this proposal brings him from 25 hours to 33 hours. So it's an increase of 8 hours.
At the same hourly rate?
2%.
At the same
2%.
rate, correct.
Would 2%, would be a 2% increase, wouldn't it? Yes, no?
I did not include a 2% increase in salary in that number.
Okay. In the previous, if I may,
Yes.
in the previous discussion, we were talking about the listers and the fact that they are elected officials and don't come under the direction of the town manager. We struggle with controls there. It's been brought to my attention somewhat that there's a problem with attendance or even work being done in the office with land use at this point in time. And I would think that that would be something we want to address. I know that there's people complaining that they're having a hard time getting a hold of the town manager. I mean, not the town manager, I'm sorry, not the town manager, the land use administrator, as needed. I've spoken with Brendan about it, and Paul as well. I think this is an area we may need to address at the board level, because there seems to be a belief that the planning commission and the select board are his boss, not the town manager. And how we're gonna resolve that and make sure that it's clear who's in charge.
Okay.
Okay, I'll address those items with our land use administrator this week. And I'm not sure if do we need to discuss the specific complaint or an executive session?
Well, no, let's take that up. Let's move on. Yeah, we got like 5 minutes, and I'm sure we're gonna have to extend for like 5 more minutes. I'm all about compromise. I do not support the proposal to move to 33 hours, but I would listen to, 29 or 30 perhaps. And the reason why is, we're asking everybody to fall in line. And the reason why I brought up early on in the meeting, the very beginning of the meeting, was about, I attended two or maybe three of the planning board meetings. I think that and I like Chris a lot, and I think he's doing a good job. I think it maybe needs a little more definition, a little more, whatever the job description is, or what Mike just said, that's fine. But I view his job as for enforcement and compliance, and to administer the bylaws that are within the town plan, whether he makes the permits or gets the documents ready for the potential zoning board to do this. But what I found by listening to the two meetings and not having a lot to say, was that the membership of the planning board right now, as I said earlier, I'm not sure that Chris's participation in those meetings adds to what they're already doing. I think they're underestimating themselves, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up you guys.
They're what?
What I'm saying is that you've been there a long time, and that you seem to be testing out the proposals, the bylaws that come before whatever might be the problem. I don't see, and it's not Chris, I don't see a zoning administrator being paid to sit in those meetings. I see that as a waste of time. And I've been in 3 of your meetings or heard them. I don't think that they're contributing to that. I think they're listening because they're listening to what you guys are already saying. And so when you adopt it, I don't think it's productive to have them sit and get paid in that meeting. I think it's a waste of time. So there may be a need, what I was hoping earlier for when we heard, and I asked this about branding, he said, no, there was a mix-up on this. I heard a few months ago that we received a $20,000 grant I was assuming, and I would be all in for this, to help digitalize the records in land use between what's in the vault, and that's not the case. There was a mix-up on that grant. It's going somewhere else. And when I finish, Brandon, you correct me if I'm wrong, because that would have made me say, okay, I'm all in. I would have raised Chris's hours for a year and let him do the work that Sven was doing, which is to help modernize our records so that when the phone calls come in for a request, they push the button and they're right on the phone.
So the planning commission has already approved Chris to do some of the digitizing on extra hours.
Yep.
Based on the fact of the money that the select board gave us for when the zoning administrator went from full-time down to part-time. They also gave us, I forgot the exact amount, but they gave us a set amount for $2,000 or whatever.
It was that too.
So we're gonna use that money to pay some salary hours to
Yep.
do the digitizing.
Yep.
Which is only gonna go obviously so far, but,
Right.
so we are utilizing that money that was given to us, and having Chris do it since he's already.
Yeah, I thought Sven was really onto something. I thought when he left, he completed something like 30%.
Yep,
Or
yep.
whatever the percentage was of the move. But I remember, and then Brandon said, no, there was a mix-up on that grant. I thought we got an additional one for $20,000.
That I don't know about.
And that would have funded more of it and not come from property tax revenue.
Right.
I'm all about trying to get these grants to help
Yeah.
us out here in the office, to let people work more, if we could figure out a way not come from property taxes. I'm okay with that. Am I close to that, Brandon? The grant didn't cover that?
Yes, that is correct.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions on the land use? It's 9:30. It's 9:30. Well, let's take a couple
I'm
more.
not sure it's wise to lower the legal budget.
Of land use? No, it isn't. It absolutely is not, because I'm sure it's gonna go way over when we go, in this year.
And it's been lowered by 2,000 just to make the bottom line look prettier.
It's not gonna happen. It's gonna go out anyway.
That's one of the complaints is we're paper tigers. And
Not
we're
this
gonna-
year.
And anyway,
No, that's an excellent point. It's going over now. It's already, just in the last warrant, it went over. Any other questions on land use it's 9:30,
Motion to extend.
10
5
minutes.
10 minutes?
Yeah.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
aye. Right warrants.
Yep. Any other questions, any other directions of Brandon for land use at the moment then? Because he's got homework to do with the 3 things that or 4 things, including the highway, that we tried to get up for questions for the next meeting. No other questions?
Tell us why, just tell her to make it clear, like Paul asked for.
Yep,
Why.
okay. Okay,
all
go,
of them.
My battery's going dead
Yeah,
too.
across the board.
let's go to warrants, please.
Move to approve warrant article January 4th, 2021, general fund payroll, $14,236.11, operating $10,941.69, highway payroll, $12,389.84, operating $14,980.15, solid waste payroll, $1,606.46, operating $2,085.67, library payroll, $1,938.51, operating $900, total payroll, $30,170.92, operating $28,907.51.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve the warrants dated January 4th, 2021. Any discussion?
I'm trying to find it. Had something to do with a record. Where is it?
It's under highway.
Huh?
It's under highway. You talking about the towing from Twin Line?
Yes.
Top of page 2, highway.
Right here.
I'll go find the highway first, John. It's still under general. Anyway.
You get it?
You know anything about this thing?
Well, you'd have to, I have a check number. Have you found it yet?
No.
Brandon, can you find this out or whatever? If there's a question on
It's $1,675.
check number 223342.
Right.
223342.
Correct.
Who's the check for?
Highway.
Twin Line towing.
The dump truck in the snowstorm fell off or slid off the road, and Twin Line Towing pulled it out.
Can we see the actual invoice for that, or is there a way to do it? Maybe not tonight, or? Yep, John suggested emailing us the copy of whatever the invoice says.
Yeah.
What size truck is this that was pulled out of a ditch?
It was the small
Six-wheel.
pickup, the small pickup truck.
It was across Hidden Glen Bridge, and they didn't want to take one of the other bigger vehicles across. It was a judgment call from Raymond.
Okay. I'm still trying to understand why it's $1,600 to
I-
pull it out of a ditch
that
snowbank.
remains to be seen.
Well, can we see, how about this, Sarah?
Let me give you this first,
Okay,
if I may,
go ahead.
real quick. I got stuck in a snowbank on Rhonda Foley's driveway.
Okay.
And I sat there for 5 hours waiting for the guys down by the interstate. Hillside?
Hillside.
It was a little over $300.
You don't have to convince me
To
that
pull
this
me
is.
out of a ditch.
Well, I had a little chat with how this evolved, and I just said, it's kind of like the old story where fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame, or the other way around, shame on you, shame on me. I think that decisions that are going to be made in the future need to be remembered, but I'd like to see the breakdown of this. So, I suggest that we pull this, at least for the moment, and then take a look at the breakdown, and then we're meeting next week anyway, so I don't see the danger in holding it for 1 week. That's my suggestion. I don't know. If it stands, we probably will have a discussion about whether we're doing business with,
Or we're gonna call and do business with.
or exactly, something.
If they send a heavy equipment record, it's one thing, but if it's a pickup truck,
And the number of personnel.
Yep, I don't, but the invoice ought to show something.
There you go.
Yes. Yes.
So, do
I
we
suggest
approve
that-
the warrants without this? or what
Yes,
do we do?
yes.
I-
Absent that check number. Brandon, have you got the check number down?
Yes, 223342.
Yes, hold it. Hold it, and then we're gonna have a meeting next week anyway to talk about
Yeah.
budgets, and we'll,
Yep.
we'll get the answers to it. What's that, John?
No, I doesn't surprise me.
What?
We
Surprise you.
hope to have a meeting next week? I thought.
Not yet,
Okay,
but maybe I'm jumping the gun.
I agree. January, usually that happens.
What's a reading room design?
The motion on the floor needs, who made the motion to accept the warrants? John? So you need to remove that check number. It's a friendly amendment.
Concur to remove check number 223342 from.
And
the
who's the
warrant.
one that seconded that? Okay, Mike, so you're on board with that?
Yes.
The motion been made and seconded to approve the warrants dated January 4th, 2021, absent that check number for temporarily to review. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Yep. Okay, DeForest, before we adjourn.
Any other business, I'm sorry, this may not be the right time at all, and the Veterans Memorial Committee has a reserve fund that was set up when we were in the process of creating a memorial. And it was to hold grant funds, funds raised by the committee and so forth. And it says it's for the creation of the memorial. The memorial's now been created, we still have funds in that reserve account. We would like to ask the voters to change the purpose of that reserve fund from the creation of the memorial to maintenance of the memorial. And that would require a separate article on the ballot.
Have you done the research that does, or can it be made at this table?
I'm sorry?
Can we vote on it at this table at the next meeting, or does it have to go before the voters?
I think it has to go before the voters because it was a reserve fund.
We just vote to do a ballot, we can do that right now.
But it needed to be on the ballot.
Yeah, I'm all set with that, but I wondered out loud whether or not we could make that decision now, ourselves. I don't know.
What's the amount?
So, is the meeting over?
Not yet, we haven't had a motion to adjourn,
Oh, we haven't adjourned.
not yet.
Sit down.
$6,000.
I'm happy to do it either way, I was just trying to speed it up, because I see no problem with,
I'm lovely with that. I just don't know who has.
did everybody hear that?
Yeah.
There's about $6,000 left in the Veterans Memorial Fund. They've already established the Veterans Memorial and looking for to spend those funds as maintenance. But they're wondering about authority, whether the voters have to adopt the approval or whether or not we can make it. That's what I'm asking.
See the original article.
Yeah, we'd have to see the original article. Yes. Yep. Okay, and if you can forward or ask Brandon that. Did you get that, Brandon and Suzanne and Olivia, what DeForest was looking for, the original article setting up the Veterans Memorial Committee funds? They're looking.
Yes, I got it.
Okay, she's looking to change the definition of it so that it becomes a maintenance fund or something. It was originally formed to actually set up to create it. Yes. Now we want a motion
Yes,
to, okay. Go ahead.
DeForest more, I'll chat with her a little bit more about that as well.
Yep, okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.